last part, we talked about where the Nephilim come from, where with the sons of God in Genesis 6. We also talked about the New Testament, right? And kind of where they fit in the New Testament. Now, in this part, in this final part, we've got probably about another 2 hours of content here for you. And in this one, we're going to discuss what happened in the Old Testament with the conquests of Joshua and why God shows up to be Superman. And also, we'll talk about some of the newer stuff and how the Smithsonian has the bones to this day, right? Because there are some modern tales that we have of Nephilim, believe it or not. Some of them are kind of hokey and crazy. There's also some real stuff. And we're going to dig into all of this and so much more on this episode of the Metal Bible Podcast. And we're going to start with the question, how big were they actually? Were they just kind of tall people, like 6, 7 feet tall? Or were we talking about something a little bit crazier? All right, stay tuned.
I mean, it's like there's so much. Gosh, it's like, go ahead, prove to me I'm wrong. Because
I got a question for both of you. How tall do you think they were, really?
You mean the original Nephilim?
Well, the original ones, yes, but also like the ones that the Israelites would have gone against in the conquest.
13 feet-ish, around 13, going
both?
off of Og's.
Even the pre-flood ones?
No,
I think pre-flood was bigger. I think that they have gotten smaller as they have, for lack of a better word, watered down their genes. Possibly gotten better at it, because I think that it's beneficial because they want to look like mankind. They want to totally fit in with us.
You don't really fit in if you're this gigantic 13 foot. Well, and a lot of people say like
we put you in
6 feet tall because the Israelites were small. But I mean, King Saul
the
was like
size of a guy was 5'2".
King Saul was 6 feet tall, and he was terrified of Goliath.
Well, so hold on. So what does it say about Saul and then David in the songs that they would sing about David? That Saul was tall and David was head and shoulders over him.
Yep.
So David
so
was
Ricky,
not
what do you
5'2".
Think? Right, he wasn't. Ricky, what do you think?
Oh man,
the height of
I have thoughts of brimming. I think that pre-flood that you're looking. I mean, I can't give you an exact amount, but I mean, I would say at least double in stature what we see after the flood. At least double in stature.
Well, everything before the flood was much bigger and better.
Correct.
They say even people were probably bigger than even like Adam and Eve were taller.
Shelley brought up an interesting point about watering down of genetics. That was a product of the initiation of the law, all the laws of thermodynamics, but the second law in
Well, our own DNA since Adam has slowly been degrading.
That's exactly my point. And so
so the Nephilim DNA that probably went even quicker because they were angels.
You're wrong. We're evolving, not devolving. Don't you know the science?
And so I would say probably, somewhere between, I don't know, 16 to 13, maybe 17 to 13 feet. That's probably, but again, that's a slow, it's going to slowly peter out the longer that we have these kind of generations. And we see this, and not to get too much into modern stuff, but we see this in a lot of the modern exhumations of skeletal remains of the Nephilim here in the U.S.
The Smithsonian has the bones.
They do indeed have the bones.
Down in the very
I almost wore my blurry creature shirt that says exactly that. The
Good for you,
Smithsonian
man.
has the bones. I love that.
I almost wore my Sasquatch shirt because we were talking about Nephilim.
We're almost there. We're almost to the weird.
But no, you're good.
Weird, so.
We're almost to the weird. Oh yeah, because everything else we've been talking about doesn't qualify.
Everything that I've talked about, I find normal now.
I wanted to touch on.
Right?
I know. Well, this is what we talk about all the time, right? I wanted to touch on what you were asking about how they survived the flood. So, I mean, I forgot to tell you. No, you're good, man. You're good. I'll be really frank. To me, I think it's ridiculous that they would be on the boat. That's my personal opinion, and I know that some people, dig
I
that.
do
That's their
agree.
thing. I just think that it's a little. It seems a little weird to me. The
It
reason that
seems
I
weird that they would
think,
be back at all, though.
well, it seems weird that they
Uh,
would be at all, right?
think
Um,
think for a second, guys, of every song, country song, pop song, metal song, doesn't matter. Every song, every movie, every book, every play ever written, it's always about love.
oh yeah,
Love, 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 love. It's, you know what? He left his wife, but he loved the woman that he left his wife for.
Yeah,
well, that's the
And
thing, right?
we
That's the
deify
thing.
love to such a stupid degree
yeah.
that it seems to me like we're conditioned to to always excuse somebody's
Right, like
behavior
it's like
for
the
love.
highest virtue, and it excuses all wrongdoings. And
So
in fact,
the
Right, like
isn't
love
that
is
angel,
just
really isn't
accepting
that what
everything
we're
that you've ever done,
is,
and
isn't that what we're
love
the
dealing with
sometimes
the
right
is
now?
flipping over
Frankly,
tables.
I
So
mean, we're dealing with the fact that angels, well, they loved her, they lusted after her, and there's more to it than that, right? But because the word talks about the women being
they
fit
loved
extensions,
their children.
but
fit
yeah, but they wanted to
extensions.
procreate, and they
That's what the whole
were, I
Book of
mean,
Enoch is about.
hot
How they're
mamas, right?
sad
Right.
about all of this.
Call it what it is. Um, so to come back to your question, like, yeah, do I think? Hold on, hold on. Do I think that they went underground? I think it's possible. Do I think that there were local floods? I think that's unlikely, but I also think
No,
that
I
that's a
think it was
possibility given the
worldwide.
grammar. I don't ascribe to that view.
Science
Do I
I,
shows
if
worldwide
it
evidence.
was just a
agreed?
local
Agreed.
flood,
I'm
God would just say, "Move over
No, no,
there."
no, no. When I say
Right,
local
right,
flood, I
right.
don't. When I say local flood, I don't mean, and again, I don't adhere to
Yeah,
this
sure.
this idea, but they say that there were floods in multiple places,
Mhm.
and so I still don't think that that adds up to it. But it says that the mountaintops were covered, and then like the grammar also suggests that they weren't necessarily covered.
Well, the
I don't
mountains
ascribe to
were
that they were
created
not.
by the flood, like the
I agree
mountains
with
Right,
are
you.
today.
that as
I agree with
well.
you.
Yeah,
I
from
agree with you.
the
So
well springs. Right, right.
um,
Yep.
so, well, not all of them, right? But a good amount of them, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But there is something that I wanted to mention to you guys that I stumbled across while I was listening to a really interesting talk in some obscure reference to the Nephilim in the New Test or in the Old Testament that like no one even ever thinks about. And I think it actually was in First or Second Chronicles when they're going through just genealogies.
Mhm.
Apparently, there and if it, like the Bible references this person, I'll have to look it up. I don't know it offhand, but there's a reference in the Bible that says to look back at Jasher, and it references an individual. I think it is in
Oh,
Chronicles, and this individual,
it
if you
is.
go and look it up in Jasher, found the tablets that explained how the gods were using genetic manipulation to be able to create this hybrid race. And so the theory is that they came back, and I ascribe to this at some level, but not 100%. I think that probably both things happened. I think that there was probably another incursion, and I think that there was also humans that were manipulating things to change their genetics, frankly. Um,
Sure.
and
Well,
so
yeah. I mean, the Book
this
of
guy
Yasser
finds this
it talks
thing.
about them mixing with other species too.
Absolutely, and that's part of it too, right? I mean, all these tablets also include the information about Azazel doing all this garbage on his little particular island where he was making all his little
Right.
science experiments, and that is
Hold on. You
where
mean that there's other bad guys in the Bible other than
I
Satan?
know it's hard to
I didn't.
believe that Satan doesn't just
Right.
mean a
Other than
single
just good old
entity, but
Lucy.
Lucy. Anyway, so
Lucy.
I actually do ascribe to two different ideas, and my particular ideas are I think well three maybe. I think that there was probably another incursion, or probably was. I think that there still are incursions. Frankly, I mean I think that that's
I just don't think it was
modern phenomenon.
200. I don't think it was a 200 angel
Exclusively, you mean?
conspiracy this time. I think it was, yeah, I think it was a one-off here, a one-off there. And I think
Probably
they thought,
So
so.
well,
why?
maybe we can fly under the radar there because
Yeah,
I love her.
right.
So why? did God not punish those the same that He punished the ones before?
I don't think. Well, the Bible's silent on it, right? I mean, it's not the Bible, but then again, the Bible's also silent on whether or not there was another incursion. So, maybe we already just have the precedent and we kind of have the idea. I'm not saying that that's the case, but I I think like it's sort of one of those things where the damage is already done. It's like when God
all we
when
can do
God
is
punished
speculate. Ultimately, we
when
have
So
no
hold
idea.
on,
correct,
because
and that's what I'm
let
doing.
me
When
jump
God
in
said,
here.
hold on, let me finish my thought, and then you can hop in. So when
Here's
God set the precedent
here's
for sending these
okay.
angels to eternal darkness and chains and the hefty sin that they're paying for even now, right? And their judgment is in wait for them, their final judgment. I think that God intentionally set that precedent so that any other ones that wanted to try knew exactly what was coming to them in the long run. But I mean, that's just speculation. Again, go ahead, Sean.
Um, so when it repenteth God that He made man, and He brought the flood, I believe that the world was at a tipping point. There was so much angelic DNA and corruption in everything,
Agreed.
That
in
the
plant stock and
Messiah coming
animals.
was in danger at that point.
Right,
That's right.
that tipping point was almost there that's why He King's X'd it. That's
Correct.
really what I think. One
Well, and that's why He tells the Israelites,
angel,
don't mate with anybody outside because you will
right,
ruin them.
absolutely.
Correct.
Don't take away your purity. But
It
I
wasn't a
think
racist thing. It wasn't like, oh, don't do that because those
It
there might be black guys, or
it
it
was
wasn't
a
that.
human.
no.
It was a human racist thing. As a matter of
That's
fact.
right. The human race is, and that's the same reason why God tells us don't wear flax and cotton, don't grow two things in the same field, don't roast a
All the
kid in its mother's
weird
milk.
old laws and stuff. Yep.
That we're like, the heck, I can't
Right.
wear poly cotton
That's
blends.
what
I
I
can't
always
eat a
tell people when
cheeseburger.
they start bringing those up. I said there had to be an extremely strict diet plan, and I mean, God is putting them on. He is saying, "Look, I need to bring the Messiah through you, and so I have to have." So God must have foreseen something in the future that had to do with poly cotton or whatever,
Right.
with something with polyester that was going to be a problem, and so He
Well,
just said, "No,
and
we're not doing
honestly,
it."
science has found all sorts of things, but that's a rabbit trail for another day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Non-Nephilim.
so one whatever. So the Prince of Persia finds a woman that he thinks he loves and can't do without, and he procreates with her. Well, because everybody knows about the Prince of Persia from the
Absolutely.
Daniel story.
Well, I mean,
Um,
we have people, we have other religions that do tell us, um, like I think it's either another incursion or they were on the boat. I don't think that they were.
I'm going to go with incursion, and I think incursion is
Well,
too big of a word to use because
it
it
wasn't just
wasn't
like
planned like
a
it was
planned thing.
with
Well,
Shemyaza
all the
and
other
Right.
religions,
his posse.
all the other religions after that tell us that they have beings that came down and mated with human beings and created these
Absolutely.
other
Hercules, right.
Yeah.
Hercules is a Nephilim, right?
Are you
Right.
kidding? The Queen of England,
Mhm.
good old King Charles, believes he's descended
Oh, yeah,
from
from
Odin.
He might
yep,
be. He
yep.
might
Oh,
be.
he's
I mean,
about to go meet him too. So
right,
Oh,
yeah.
I was going to tell you, man. The only reason that I actually even went with this theory that maybe there's something to this for these guys being in the ground. Again, I think that. So here's the thing. I'm just going to lay the groundwork because that's the way Shell and I really, I think that we kind of try and figure things out, and especially me. That's how I figure things out. I'm like, okay, I have to look at all of it.
right.
I don't think it's a one and done. I don't think that there's a
Yeah.
simple answer to this kind of thing. I think it's a complicated, convoluted, highly suspect set of
And that's
occurrence
probably why
event,
the Bible is
and
silent on it, because it was just,
sure,
it wasn't just a single event that
it
happened,
also
and then this is where they all came from.
obviously it's not important enough for us to know right now, right? We
Right.
can. That's the reason we're left to speculate. But the reason I think that there's any credence to that at all is because of Deuteronomy 5 verse 8 says this is where God is laying stuff down for the Israelites. It's literally in the Ten Commandments. He says, "You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in the heaven above, or that is on the earth beneath, or that is in the water under
Under
the
the earth.
earth." He does not say on the earth. He does
Yep.
not say contained by the earth. He says under
Mhm.
the earth.
Yeah.
And what the heck is under the earth? You know what I'm saying?
A hollow
Which
earth
is why
kind of
I'm like,
thing.
well, I mean, I actually do ascribe a lot more to a hollow
Yeah,
earth
I
than
think
Michelle
that
does.
we just have no idea. I think we have no,
So
because
Agree
the
with
it's
whole
just another
idea
theory,
of
though.
what is under the earth, according to scientists, is based on the assumptions of how it was created. Right? And so
Right.
they think we know what is in the earth because we know how it was created, but they think it was created just by rock smashing
Well, that's the same way that we think we know what a black hole is because
Correct.
we have the mathematical equations.
Hmm.
Um,
together. I
s-
think
but
that once everything's all said and done, we're gonna realize how we know nothing.
Oh,
uh,
yeah.
like
I mean,
like how many
as
of
high
people's
as the
lives
heavens
were
are above
wasted.
the earth.
Right.
You
How
know
many
what
people's
though? It
lives
may
were
be
wasted on things that just were false.
well. There's going to be lots of that, but I think too. It's funny when you talk to quantum physicists. Do you know how many of them are atheists?
Not many, because
not very
they
many.
Very, right?
because
Very, very small
when you
amount.
get down to the weird, strange stuff that interacts with only conscious beings, sometimes you start to
Yep.
change your perspective on things
Looking,
Sure.
about how
you
this universe
watch,
is literally a digital
right?
simulation that we're in.
And he
And
rolled it up like a scroll.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's why, like, there's a Neil deGrasse Tyson video where he talks about how there's a 50-50 shot that
Right.
we're in a simulation, and honestly, like, I'm just like, dude, that is God.
Right.
Like,
We
we're in
are
that
we
People look
are
for
simulation.
in
so
God's
people look for
simulation.
so
We
many
just also
things.
happen to be real.
It's
Right,
funny to me that
right.
people are so offended by the idea of God and everything, but I'm like, all you're doing is changing the words. Like
Yep.
it's just you're
Mhm.
playing semantics, and you think that you have any
Yeah.
right
So
to
I
kind of
always ask people
remake
that,
reality
like,
in
well,
your
who
image.
programmed it? Just I
Right?
always ask,
Right.
like,
Oh,
okay,
oh,
so you see this
you've got
program.
a
Who's the
very
programmer? I call
complicated
that
DNA code?
I
Heck
call that
yeah.
programmer God. That's it.
Yep.
That's
Yeah.
all it is.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
DNA was coded and I know the name of the
Somebody,
coder.
I think it was on Joe Rogan, actually, as a matter of fact. Some guys got together and they replaced a bunch of words in the openings for Genesis with a bunch of computer programming language, and it says, "In the beginning was the programmer," and the programmer was with the code, and the code was God. Like, it's very interesting to like listen to the
See,
whole
I
thing. You're
have
like,
no problem with any of
yeah,
that. I would love
I
it
I don't
don't
either.
either. Like
because
really.
And the code
I'm
was
all
with
for,
God,
like,
and the
I
code
sent
was
you that.
God.
Well, I sent you the cover of that book that I'm in the middle of, dude. That book
Oh yeah, man,
is on, like, dimensions and talking about God. And I mean, before I
that's
even read
cool.
this book, I've been trying to get people to change how they talk about God, because
Yeah,
God he is the sole supreme hyper dimensional being that
yeah,
exists.
Yep.
And then there are extra dimensional beings that exist,
yeah.
and then we are three-dimensional beings that exist who experience four dimensions. But all of, like, heaven is not a place that is somewhere out there. Heaven is in another dimension here,
Or is in other dimensions.
or
It
yeah,
is
higher
Yeah.
dimensions.
multidimensional,
Right?
I am
String
sure.
theory says that we have at least 10 dimensions,
Right,
Yeah.
and
right.
God is just in the dimension above all of that.
which
Yeah.
which is what he is, right? He is the one who created time for us. It is literally his
Right.
construct.
Well, it's why he presents himself in three persons. It makes sense that the sole hyperdimensional being that exists doesn't make sense and
Isn't
expresses himself in
contained in
three
just
persons, right?
yeah.
Like
Sure.
imagine like how could you possibly think that first century Jews came up with that concept?
Right.
Like that is beyond me. That is
Yeah.
so advanced scientifically
Well,
Well,
David
and
well, and
David tried
it's
to
also
put it
the
into words, and
well,
yeah,
that's why David said, "As
correct.
high as the heavens are above the earth, so great are
And
your thoughts concerning
and
me,
the
right.
O
and the
Lord."
funniest the funniest part about all that is that the church fathers, the early church fathers, slowly were able to coalesce on a single idea of what
Yeah.
God, like aspects of how God actually works, like what it meant that Jesus was God, and what it meant that the Holy Spirit was God, and what it meant that Yahweh was God, right?
Hmm.
That's why, and I think that's why there was so much infighting and factions, because people wanted to be right
Because they're
about,
trying to grasp a
um,
concept that is so difficult to
well,
grasp.
yeah, and
So
so that's
so
why you
above
get these
us.
Gnostic ideas, and you get these very literal ideas, and then you get a
Yeah.
combination of both, right?
Yep.
Because you're grappling
Yep.
with some really
Yep.
difficult realities.
Yep.
Well, and
Okay.
then when
So
the Holy Spirit throws something, he drops something in you and gives you a revelation of himself, and then you're like, I have this revelation, and it's
yeah.
Yeah,
fire for you, and you try to
Yeah.
describe it to other people, and it's not always fire for somebody else,
right,
Right.
and so you
Because it
spend
doesn't make any
your
sense to them because God knows you personally and how to get to you.
correct,
right,
correct.
and you spend your whole existence just trying to get
Yeah.
them to know that
I
awesomeness
Yeah,
in
Yeah, I mean, some of the most intimate moments that I've ever had with God, if I explain them to you, you'd be like, "Oh, that sounds cool." But to me, it was just like, that was the most
sure.
profound thing I've ever experienced
right.
in my life. Uh,
Well, because it's like
And you know what?
sex.
Those
You can try
that
to describe it to people, but none of us are
yeah,
adequate at
yeah.
describing it. You
So I
have
want
to
to kind of,
experience it.
yeah,
Sorry, Rick.
I want to kind of go, kind of get back a
it's
little bit.
accurate. It's just very funny
Uh,
to me.
I want to kind of get back because I want to move a little bit forward. So we talked about the Genesis 6, we talked about the flood, we talked about the New Testament, we talked about the Old Testament. Now I want to move to eschatology. Okay,
Eschatology.
Can
because
we
God
can we put a tack in that super quick? Let me go pray with my kids, and I'll be right back.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Go ahead. I'm gonna get some
Cool.
Are you
water.
gonna
Cool.
pause
One sec.
that recording?
Yep.
Okay.
You were saying.
So all right. So we talked about the Old Testament, we talked about the New Testament. And we talked about how uh, the way I like to kind of segue into this is God, every time that this topic of the Nephilim shows up, God shows up extremely pissed off, right?
I wonder why.
And there's one other time that God tells us he's going to come back extremely pissed off, and that is in the book of Revelation.
Yes, it is.
So we can talk about eschatology now. There's a whole lot of stuff that goes along with this.
Yeah.
I'll kind of lay out my thoughts,
Sure. Go for it, man.
and then you guys can just tell me what your thoughts are.
Certainly.
So, for me, I think quite a few things about this. This is a topic that I'm still not 100% on for everything. I'm still trying to wrap my. I'm going to
Like
work my way
most of us.
through this, but talking about these things with other people is how I form my opinions on these. And
Absolutely.
so, so again, I thank you guys so much for doing this with me,
Of course, man.
Such a
because this
pleasure.
topic
We're
is
having a
one that
blast.
this topic is like one for go on for hours and hours and hours, and we've already gone for 2 hours.
Honestly, I feel like we haven't even touched the surface, to be
Right,
honest.
Right.
right. Well, and we've just kind of skimmed over every
Yeah, we
topic.
really have.
So, for those who have who are interested in this topic, there is an infinite amount. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I've studied this topic in depth for 7 years, and I still have not found the bottom of this Heiser hole, is what I call
Right.
Hey.
it. So this rabbit hole, once you go down it, be prepared. I mean, it is because you find something in the Bible, a topic, and you dig into it, you'll be in that topic for quite a while. This is just
Oh,
one
yeah.
that is so deep that I mean it's I mean Dr. Heiser started an entire podcast called the Naked Bible Podcast, where he went through how all of this fits into uh, the entire Bible, even the Book of Revelation that we're going to talk about here in a second. So my views, as far as Revelation go, I'm what's called a historical premillennialist. Right? For those who don't know what that is, it's kind of the historical view that we are that the idea that the millennium is still to come, that it will be an actual millennium
Yeah, because if
at
this
some
is
point.
it, I signed up for the wrong thing.
No shit.
Right. I think the least likely of all of those systems is the post-millennial view. I think that's a
Right.
silly to
Absolutely.
say that
Makes
everything
no sense.
happened in 70 AD. Like Heiser said, a lot of things are already but not yet. That
Absolutely.
it's this book of Revelation has the enemy has tried to fulfill it repeatedly throughout history and failed. At some point,
Yeah.
there will be a time where it is fulfilled. So okay, and I believe it's Thessalonians that where it talks about the Great Deception. I think that's Thessalonians,
But
right? Is that
Jesus warns us about it in
yeah?
Matthew 24,
Right,
25
right, right,
is
right. They're all kind of talking about this same view, and so I also don't believe that like we're going to get zapped out of here at any time in the pre-tribulation rapture. I'm what's
Nope.
called
man.
a
Glad we're all on the same
I
page.
know. I'm what's called now. There's so many terms for this. I hate it, but it's called a pre-wrath post-tribulation because the Bible never
Right.
says that there is a 7-year tribulation. Not one time does it say it. Twice it says that it is 3.5 years. It says it 2 times. It says it in days and it says it in months. Okay.
Yeah. But the weeks, but there's
There is a 7-year period, and 3.5 of
the
those is the Great
right.
Tribulation. The rest of that is the wrath of God, according to this view, right? And we are not subject to wrath, so
Yeah,
that's
and
the idea
that's still a week. So yeah. Yeah, yeah.
right,
The 7 weeks.
right, of Daniel. That yeah.
And
So
again, you know what? Not a hill I would die on any of
yeah, I
that.
mean,
You happen to
we'll
agree
find
with
out in
us.
the
If
end.
he
Yeah,
toots and we scoots and he comes like 3 or 4 times, even though it was the day of the Lord, well, yeah, okay, got it wrong.
yeah,
But
right,
I'm pretty sure I'm ready for the long haul.
right.
Yep.
And I just want to press this. I hate how people get so pissed off about this topic, they will leave a church over eschatology.
Yeah.
And like I've taught my eschatological views in churches before, and I've had to preface them because I didn't hold the traditional pre-tribulation rapture view. And I mean, people leave the church over this stuff, and that's so
Dude,
stupid,
I'm
guys. Come on.
Assemblies of God, and they absolutely believe that all the
Pre-triggers.
amazing, great Christians who did nothing for the cause of Christ will be feasting those 7 years while people are losing their heads for the
Yeah,
cause of
yeah,
Christ who aren't
right.
worthy to
Right.
join the
Well,
feast.
Revelation 21 says that the first resurrection will include people who were beheaded by the Antichrist. So the
Right.
pre-tribulation
Mm-hmm.
can't happen. And I posted that
Mm-hmm.
on my page, and some of the responses I got, well, the resurrection isn't the rapture. The rapture isn't a resurrection. It was like, would you call
Then what the
when the
heck? What
dead
if
in
the
Christ
dead in
rise
Christ
first?
rise first?
Well,
Right.
that's because we it's another that's one of those
Right?
freaking boxes, man. You make the word
Yeah.
rapture, and then you want
And
to
I,
put a stamp
you
of
know,
approval on it
I
and make
have
it mean whatever
full
you think it should
sympathy for
mean.
that. I have full sympathy for that view.
Me
I
too.
grew up in a pre-tribulation church. I still go to that church, and it is a
Me
pre-tribulation.
too.
My pastor is great because he taught on Revelation, and he's a pre-trib guy. But that's not the only eschatological system that he talked about. He's openly said there are other views, and we might
Good
be
for him.
wrong, so we need to be prepared.
Right.
And I was just
Good
like,
for
yeah,
him.
sure. If you're going to believe, like, I can be wrong. I openly admit I have no idea.
I mean, I'd like to be wrong. I would like
Right.
a pre-trib
I
rapture.
know.
I'm not gonna lie. It
what I
sounds
what I
good.
tell
Who
people
wouldn't?
is hope for a pre-trib rapture, but plan for one that's
Plan.
not. Right?
That's
So
right. Plan
because
plan to be standing when Christ comes drenched
yeah,
in blood with eyes like
yeah.
fire. Man,
Well,
that's
and
what I'm
that
planning.
Yeah.
brings us to the point of the great deception, right? Because my view of the great deception is that at some point, maybe even fairly soon, the great deception doesn't have to happen, and then the tribulation happens.
Right,
That's
right,
not.
right,
Hmm.
right,
I don't.
right.
I
Agreed.
think that it could happen at any time.
Yeah.
As deception,
I
and
think
then
the
that could
thing
I
boil
think
because that will take some time to have an effect on the church
correct.
to cause the great falling away. Right?
Yeah.
It's not just going to
Well,
be because some people will lose their faith immediately when this event I'm about to describe happens, but a lot of people will still hold true to it. So it could take some time. And my
well, the
view is that
Catholic
it's
Church is preparing
for some
to
kind of
to
alien
embrace it.
invasion.
Right.
That's what it is. Like, and whether it is an Project Bluebeam kind of thing, or it is just faked in some way, or whether it is actual sons of God in their little man-made ships, or sons of God made ships that they're using
Big
to
Brother
go
tech.
around through the cosmos. I mean,
Yeah.
here's the thing, like people, please, okay, get a different idea of the supernatural world. Read the book of Ezekiel and tell me that there's no vehicles in the supernatural realm. Read
Tell
that
me
and tell
what
me there's no
Elijah went
vehicles.
up in.
Yeah.
What did Elijah
It
go
was
up in?
Yeah.
it wasn't
Yeah.
just
He
horse. There
didn't
were no
sprout
fiery
wings.
horses, right?
Right.
He
They were
didn't
trying to describe, using their vernacular, things that we can't even
vehicles.
describe without.
Right. Right. Right, right. And
So
for that matter, there's not even that. Think of Elisha when his servant comes to him and says,
Hmm.
um, Master, we are surrounded. The kings have found you.
Hmm.
Let's panic.
mhm.
And Elisha
He's like,
tells
"What are you
him,
talking about?"
no, we're good. Our army's bigger than theirs. And he's like,
Yeah.
one, two,
And
two.
he
Me and
he's
you.
Yeah, and he's seeing all of these other beings around them trying to screw
Hmm.
with him.
And the
Yeah,
word says he prayed, Lord, open his eyes, and then he saw the hills covered
Yep.
with
yep.
horses and
Replete
chariots of
And
with
that
fire.
all
might have
sorts of
changed his mind a little bit for a
armament.
second. He
Yeah.
might have gone, "Oh well, maybe,
He might have gone, I
maybe."
guess our army is bigger. All right. You want to do what? We're going to strike him
He,
with blindness and lead him into the king?
yeah.
Okay.
I want
So
to say, Caton, I think that you're talking about the Great Deception, man, and the Great Deception, in my view, is something that is a slow roll. Just like when the
yeah,
Nephilim were pushed out of the Promised Land, it was a slow roll. It was not an instant thing, right?
yeah,
God, we unfortunately live in a very hyperactive, hyper moving society now, where
yeah.
we think that everything should instantaneously take place. And
Hmm.
that's why when people are like, "Oh, I don't believe the aliens. Oh, I don't believe Congress.
Well, it's
Oh, I don't believe,"
yeah.
I'm just like, well, sure, of
Well,
course you
and most
don't,
people don't
because
realize,
you're
like,
you're
our government has
predisposed to
openly
not be.
admitted all of this
Yeah.
stuff is
Well,
real. They've
well,
said
but
Well,
this
the
is
problem,
real.
the problem with that is that the government is shrouded in lies, and so
Right.
they use
Well,
that to their
it's every time a
advantage
Hunter
for
Biden
people not to
laptop
believe.
gets released, they're like, aliens are real.
right.
Yeah.
Well, the thing too is it's already been a slow walk. It's been a
Correct.
slow
Yeah.
walk since 1947. It was
Yep.
actually a slow walk even
Since
before
before
that.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
The day that Orson Welles went on and did the mock alien
Mhm.
invasion, and
Yeah.
people
Yep.
were
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
losing their
Yeah. Okay.
minds. That was
There's a
what, in the 30s?
mhm.
Yeah.
There's a documentary that if you haven't seen it already, I highly recommend you watch this because I think it's called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. Uh, and it's by Dr. I think it's Stephen Greer. He's that
By Greer.
hippie alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's Fifth Kind is what it is. Watch this documentary because he has a movement, right? And this
Hmm.
movement is where in this documentary they go out into like the desert and they form this circle and they all
And
sit
they
and
call
they
the
pray to
aliens.
Yep.
these. They do a pagan ritual and
Oh
then
yeah.
these beings
Yep.
show up
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
Of course they do.
Yep.
Of
What?
course they
Yep.
do.
And
It's
so
so new
this is
agey.
what
Oh
I'm
yeah.
talking about. Is I think I agree with you. I think it's a slow roll
Yeah.
that eventually there will be some sort of an event, but it will
Hmm.
be slowly
But
as mankind has accepted all of
Certainly.
this.
Well,
did you
and
watch the Super Bowl yesterday?
I didn't. I don't ever watch
are you talking about the
Okay, well
halftime
demonic,
show
here's the
or?
deal. I
demonic to
went
me stuff.
no.
I can't.
I went to my pastor's and we watched it. Um and I rooted for the winning team and I'm very glad that they won and the first half of the game was boring and I don't do commercials. I don't even watch television where there's commercials, but got to see all these commercials, which is such a weird thing anymore for me. But
Right.
there were
You can't
two
skip them.
there were two different commercials that had aliens.
Mm,
It like
Oh,
not
that's right.
alien
Yeah,
invasion, aliens coming
yeah.
and as a matter of fact, L.A. Marzulli was
I
was
reposted that. Did you see that?
yeah, I did that you had
Yeah.
put it on. I was like, oh yeah, I'm so glad L.A. Commented
Called it
on
I
it
out.
would love
because
to meet
I
him. I would
noticed
love
it
to
too.
meet
Oh,
him and
me
talk to
too.
him.
We're
Me
hoping to
too.
soon enough.
Right, really soon. Actually, we
Oh
we
yeah,
have met
y'all
an
reaching out to
in.
him?
Yes.
Not quite, but God's thrown a lot of really
And I'd
interesting
like to
things
talk to
our
Tim
If you're
way.
Alberino.
if
I'd like
you're
to get him
CTD
too.
if you're CTWing and you're one of our dark web theologians, we got some very interesting, potentially very interesting information on the
That's
horizon.
cool.
Yeah.
We've
Anyway,
got
That's
some
awesome.
interesting things happening, but
Yeah.
um, more and more, we are somewhere in that walking process. I don't know how much you guys remember of 9/11. I remember
Oh
it.
yeah. I was in 11th grade.
I
oh,
I
was
watched it
how old
when
are
it
you,
happened.
Peyton? How old are you?
I'm 38.
almost 40.
You're
Yeah, I'm
how old?
38.
Oh, look, you guys are
38.
You're the same age as me. Why don't you were in
It's
11th
it's this.
grade?
Yeah.
No, we weren't in 11th grade.
It was 2001. Yeah. I graduated in 2003.
It was in 90,
no, it's
99, right?
2001.
It was
No,
2001.
2001.
I started in 2000. I started in
I was in
1999 to
10th grade.
2003.
I was in 10th
You were in
grade.
10th
I was
grade.
a July birthday, so I was
Nah,
one
one
of
of
the
those
youngest
is
in my class. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Anyway,
yeah,
sorry.
I so I was an adult who lived on a military installation, and my husband
yeah,
was at Fort Huachuca, and my
yeah,
mother was on active duty, and my
hmm
stepmother was working for a
yeah.
congressman. So I
Oh
remember
wow,
all of that very
Oh,
well because I didn't
wow.
know where any
you're,
of them were, and
you were in the know. Yeah.
Yeah, no
we were
kidding.
waiting for the second shoe to fall, you know. But
Hmm.
Well, I remember when when we watched it, my mom, we were sitting there watching when the second plane and well, plane. We'll see about that. We can talk about that another
right,
time.
right, 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 right,
But
right.
because I remember what my mom
Second
said when it
second
happened.
object arrived with the big
She
thing.
said that was a rocket. That's what she said
Hmm.
Well, that's what it was.
because it was it
You
was
look
immediate.
at it, say same with the Pentagon.
Yeah.
There was
Yeah.
never
Well,
any wing
let's
damage,
just say
but
I don't believe their story about that at
I don't think
all
any of us do, to be
whatsoever.
there's a lot of Swiss
Yeah.
cheese in that one. But
Yeah.
be
Especially
that
after they
as
went
it
through the
may,
buildings.
at that moment, we all pretty much American sentiment was the highest it has ever been in
Oh yeah,
America,
I
I
remember
think.
that time. I remember
But
that time. Everybody was
I
brothers
remember,
and sisters, and we're all Americans.
yep.
Yeah,
Well, and I'm on a
Hmm.
military
for about a week.
installation out in the middle of, well, I'm in a military installation out in the middle of the California desert,
Yeah,
and it lasted a lot longer for us. But
well, of course.
I remember being glued to the television and watching Bush come out and say, we're going to get these dastardly people, whoever they were, whatever.
If you're not with us, you're against us. Oh
Yep,
yeah,
and we'll take you all down. And then the next day he ramped it up a step and said, we had somebody from the Middle East, these Muslims were going after them, blah, 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 blah.
yeah.
And then the next day his rhetoric was he stepped up step by step by step. He didn't take shush.
Yeah,
He
it was
didn't take
incremental.
any leaps at all
It wasn't
because
like, okay,
they
let's go attack Iraq now.
right, because we would have said, "I no, 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 no.
Yeah.
You have to give us some sort of more proof than that."
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And they know that that's how we are. They
Yeah.
know that
Yeah.
you're not going to get people to jump off the cliff, but
Sure.
by golly, if you just get
Yeah,
them
little
a little
bits and
step
pieces of
here, a little
information,
step here,
little
you'll get
tic
them to
tac
the valley.
video here, an admission there. Okay,
I
Canada, you go ahead and say
Exactly.
that they're real.
correct.
We'll say that they're
Correct.
real.
And
Right.
Because
this is really the slow rolling, and I guess this is about a good place as any. I'm gonna lay out kind of my thoughts, and I think Shelley and I kind of have the same thoughts on this, maybe not identical,
Yeah.
but pretty close.
but we
So
also need
I
to
think
tie in how the Nephilim how this goes
Oh,
in with
that's
the
that's where
exactly
Nephilim.
he's
where I'm going,
going.
brother.
No,
Yeah,
That's
no
exactly where I'm
problem.
going. Shelley knows me. We've been doing this too long by now, right? So
yeah.
so when
This is
I
why
first and
Nephilim
foremost,
matter, other
this
than the
Hmm.
is
fact that it makes
Other
the
than it's in the
Bible
Bible.
make
Yep.
sense.
Yeah.
so
This is why
there is
Nephilim matter.
there is a current convergence of the physical and the spiritual, that is, sorry, the scientific and the spiritual, that is on the regular roll right now. That
CERN.
is
Yeah.
seen in CERN. It's seen in fact,
And
it's
their
seen in
demonic god that
transgenderism.
sits right outside,
It,
that's sitting in front
Right,
of a
yep,
portal.
Shiva,
it's
right?
seen in transgenderism, and
Yeah.
transgenderism and
Baphomet.
transhumanism go
That's
hand in
Baphomet.
hand, because the transhumanist candidate for that ran for the presidency on the most recent ticket said that
Yeah.
he was the only person that actually voted for himself, but he was the transhumanist candidate. He said that we in the transgender movement need to have so many things in common, we need to align.
Yeah.
And that mentality is being pushed forth farther and harder than ever.
Hmm.
And right alongside it is this magic or spirituality, whatever you want to call it, magic and scientific convergence that is happening. And so when that convergence
Yep.
happens, we're going to start to see the option to upgrade the body, which is probably going to, I think, come before the re return of the gods. I think that that's going to
Hmm.
happen personally before the return
See,
of the
and
gods.
Yep.
I think it's
And
going to be part of what they're going to offer us.
well, I'm getting there. I'm getting
But
there.
still,
Right.
And
still,
so
Yeah.
I think that either it's going to show up first, or they're going to come and they're going to help perfect it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that is
You're
going
going
to
to be
be
like
what
the Marvel
eventually,
superheroes, which is why
well,
yeah,
those
you'll
stories are so
we're
popular.
going to be as
you'll
gods,
be like
right?
a goddess.
They'll be like, look, guys, we have come from the future. We are you. You know, Christ
Hmm.
was one that came before us. We represent him.
Yeah.
All the great faiths and all the great faith traditions came before us. We have
And
come to
none of
provide
you
you this
were
answer.
wrong. You just all
Yes,
You
you were
misinterpreted
all
it,
different
and you're all
iterations,
right in your own
all
way.
different iterations
Yep.
of the same thing,
right?
which is they've been laying the groundwork, right? I just
Oh heck
posted this
yeah!
week about
Most people already believe that, even if they're atheists, anyways. That
yeah, they
we're
absolutely
all
do,
just
right?
copying off of each other, and
Exactly. And so we see, like, for example, Quetzalcoatl is literally, when you break down one of his original names, one of his non-iteration names, kind of the base form, literally is
Bright and
light
morning
bearer,
star.
the
oh,
morning star. It's literally the same thing.
huh,
So we're going to start to see this kind of thing play out more and more and
yeah.
more.
He is
And when
Venus.
these dudes show up, that's exactly what it's going to be. And Shelley and I have talked about this at length. Neither of us believe
Well,
that
he's a serpent.
the
Also, he's depicted as a serpent many
Right,
times. So
right,
absolutely,
yeah,
right.
yep, the plumed
And
serpent.
and a winged
And
thing.
yeah,
and a winged thing.
yeah.
Ain't no thing but a
Almost
serpent
like
wing.
Rose.
Um,
yeah, a winged
and so
serpent, kind of
we
like the Nakash in the
That's
Bible. Yeah,
t-shirt
the
worthy.
Nagash,
It's
my
exactly
man.
yeah,
the Nakash
It's
or the
not
Seraph.
yep.
or
The
Nagini
shining
in
ones.
Harry Potter. I'm just
Nagini,
saying,
Yeah,
right?
which
Nagini.
is
Yeah,
Hindu.
Nagini and Harry
Um,
Potter.
And so what we believe is going to happen, to tie this back into the Nephilim, my firm belief is that once we are modified, that is what the Bible talks about not being able to buy or sell, is that you
Yeah.
will literally, it's not even going to be like a thing like, ah, dude, you're not going to be able,
You're
we're
denied
shunning you. It's
access.
just like, it's like you're not even
You
relevant.
can't
You're
compete.
not
No.
even relevant to our system anymore. There's nothing for you to do
Yep.
here. You cannot buy, you cannot sell. There's nothing here for
You
you.
Uh,
troglodyte.
Well, and then
that is our
I
perspective.
always point people to a very strange part of the book of Revelation that most people just kind of skip over, and it says that
Revelation
the
strange.
men, the right. Well, this is extra
Which
strange
strange
because
part?
this is probably the most strange part of it because it says that men will want to die but will not be
Yes.
capable of doing so.
Yes.
And that's
Yep.
exactly what Elon Musk is trying to do with Neuralink.
Yep. Yep.
He
Yep.
is
And we
trying to
expect that's
download
exactly what we speculated on.
consciousness,
Yeah.
So creepy.
downloading
Yeah,
consciousness,
yeah,
and he's already
Yeah.
got
Yeah.
somebody with a chip in him.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
What's scary
So
about
what was
it?
it
And
last
somebody
this last week? Was
a
it?
couple of weeks ago, I think it was
Yeah,
a
2 weeks
week
ago.
ago, maybe. Yeah, I mean that is coming. And here's the thing: it's in some way, this is going to incorporate these fallen beings
Mm-hmm.
and their DNA somehow being added to us because
Mm-hmm.
this is why God says, because I've always found it weird, like you could go worship Satan right now, you could devote your life to Satan right this moment,
And you can still be
and
saved.
then you could still be saved. But if you
Right.
take this mark, which is still it's a devotion to Satan,
Correct.
you cannot be saved.
Yeah.
The
And
same
that
as the
is
Nephilim.
Yep.
that is weird because and here's
That
the thing like the we
so
this is why I
maybe
always talk
Mark
about
is
like hell and I'm an annihilationist except for those people who take the mark as far as hell goes. That's the kind of where I've leaned right now. I'm willing to be wrong, but this is one of the reasons why is because those
Can
people
you define that for me? Because I don't actually know what that refers to.
annihilationism is the idea that God's going to give those people what they want whenever they die. They're going to be burned up and not exist anymore. Is that the punishment is eternal because they don't exist anymore, right? And that is and that's I mean I'm not I'm not dogmatic about this. This is just something
Mm-hmm.
that I've kind of
Just your perspective. I
when
get you.
I
I get you.
go and I read into the text, there's the only text that talks about people burning for forever is this passage talking
Mm-hmm.
about the people who take the beast or take the
Right.
mark of the beast. Every
Right.
other
Right.
passage talks about the fire lasting for forever and the smoke
Right.
lasting for forever, but not that people are burning for forever.
well, and that's the second death, which is a
Correct.
very
And
the
I'm pretty sure that
languages is
Heiser
very
was an annihilationist
final.
also. He never openly came, but he alluded to that many times. But one of the things that I've also heard that was probably the best response I've ever heard anybody say is, "I trust the God who washed the feet of Judas to do the right thing."
Yeah,
When it
I
comes to
absolutely do.
hell and all of that kind of
Push
stuff.
comes to
And
shove.
so
Yeah.
that's it. I mean, that's all I have to say. It doesn't matter what I think or you think or any of that stuff because
It really
hell was
Well,
not
doesn't.
created for us. It
in
was
the end,
created for the Satan
in
and
the
all of
end, I
the
am
Yeah.
fallen angels.
convinced that's right.
Yeah,
I know in whom
yeah,
Absolutely.
I believe, and I am
yeah,
persuaded that he keeps
So
yeah,
that which I commit to
yeah,
absolutely.
him against
To
that
put words
day.
yeah.
to what you're saying, I think, bro, is basically if you will not be able to enter the kingdom of God because you will be a Nephilim. That's what the mark
Yep.
of the beast means.
Right,
You will no longer
So
right.
be human.
the marker of the beast, that's a genetic marker
Absolutely.
Yeah,
that
it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, on your mark or on your forearm or on your forehead, and that mark doesn't have to be for
you
other
know
people.
uh,
That is a
when
mark
you got it
for
in your
God.
arm.
Oh, yeah, you get it. I mean, yeah, right. People taking pictures and showing, look what I've got. I've got this. And people. I mean, the CRISPR stuff that they have going on with the gene
Mm.
editing stuff that is getting
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
and more.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean,
It's getting
the
Well,
next.
crazy.
and
I
don't
mean,
you
I keep telling people like, you think that transgenderism is crazy. Wait till you see people that start to look like cats.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, and
That's next.
but
again?
that's
You
the
mean
incrementalism,
again,
right?
right?
That's
Right, right.
that's the incrementalism, right? That's the
Yeah,
intention. Like that is the intention is to wear away at the psyche, to wear away at not only the psyche but at the conscience, right?
yeah,
Because a seared
No.
conscience works just fine. That's exactly
yeah,
Yeah.
what we call the banished want. That's exactly
yeah,
what they want. They want you to have no conscience. They want it to be
yeah,
seared, and they want you to not have
yeah,
any focused way of really reflecting on any of these things.
yeah.
Actually, that was one of our first episodes.
Well,
That's one of
and
the
they
best
also
things that the enemy
gaslight the
does
crap out of
is
everybody because
distract us. Like we're so busy in
Yeah.
our brains
yeah,
that our
Right.
hearts don't connect with the Lord, and so I
Mhm.
mean that's
Yeah.
it's their ploy, bro.
Well, and they also they gaslight everybody and make you feel crazy because like
Certainly.
on one hand
Right.
you've got the government that acknowledges all of these things. They openly say all of this stuff happens. And I
Yeah.
watched this documentary the other day that had some people, government people on it. It's called "What They Don't Want You to Know About UFOs," and it's really just like debunking UFOs and stuff. And like so, they'll say one thing in one hand, and then they'll come back
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they'll try to
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
"Well, you're crazy for believing this."
certainly.
But so it's like, okay, well, I don't care what you think about me. I don't care if you think I'm a crazy person. Like I've seen some really crazy stuff in my lifetime,
Yeah.
and I know
Right.
that this stuff is very very real.
See,
Yep.
this
And
reminds me
just
of our
like
conversation with John Kerwin.
well,
Yeah.
and like Mike Heiser says, uh, all it takes is for one story of all of the UFO stories and all of this to be what they say that it is, and it busts the paradigm. That's it.
Sure.
Like all it needs is for even for Bigfoot. Like I don't do look at Bigfoot stuff. I tend to focus more on the alien stuff. I've found that people when you talk to people
I
about
love
Bigfoot,
cryptids.
they immediately closed off from that,
We're
and I'm
getting
trying to
there.
reach a wider audience that
I get you.
and a
Give
lot
me
of
some
people are
Sasquatch.
right.
Yeah.
So and
All
honestly,
day, baby.
I've just never really even looked into all the Bigfoot stuff. I have a friend though that and this isn't Bigfoot, but he sent me a message because I was asking people if they'd ever witnessed anything crazy like this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And he sent me a message, and I've known this guy. I went to college with him. He's not the kind of guy. He was like,
Sure.
tell anybody I said this to you. I'm not gonna say his name, but he was like,
I'll just
and I
call
can
you
tell
a
you.
liar.
Well, he said I experienced this where I was driving with me and my wife, and we had an experience with what I can only describe as the dog man. And
Yeah.
that's one of the the
Cryptid.
crazy cryptid
Cryptid.
things. And
Yep.
And
I
the
like to tell
confessionals are
people, I
all
said,
over
look,
that one right now.
right, the Bible tells us what we need to know about the supernatural world.
Yeah.
It doesn't give us all of the characters. It doesn't.
No. I
It
mean,
doesn't tell
the
us
Bible doesn't
probably
talk about
half of it.
giraffe, you know?
Right.
We
Well,
know the animals went on 2 by 2, but aardvark is
I
not in
mean,
the King James or any
right.
other
Well,
version.
and when John is in the book of Revelation, he's trying to describe the things that he's seeing. He can tell he's fumbling over his words, trying to describe these creatures,
Mm-hmm.
and he's describing some of the seraphim or the cherubim,
Right.
but it also is possible that he's seeing entirely different creatures as well, and
Yeah.
that not all seraphim look exactly the same
Yeah.
because not all
Right.
Totally.
seraphim
Well,
do.
in
They
fact,
don't.
that is a super important aspect that you're mentioning, brother, about this whole phenomenon, we'll just kind of we can include hybrids under the
Yeah.
cryptids under the hybrid rubric, right?
Right. Right.
It's so important to think on
Possibly, or they
terms
could be
of
God made too.
they could be, they could be.
There could be good
I
ones.
tend to just for ease of
Open to
access,
that possibility.
really
Yeah.
just to communicate these ideas, and I'm right there with you. I'm not like sold one way.
Sure.
It doesn't matter to me. There's no skin in the game for me. It's just it is what it is.
Yeah.
But we have to keep in mind that because we live in a spiritual reality,
Yeah.
that these things can present themselves as iterations. In fact, that's exactly what they do, right? I just finished saying that Quetzalcoatl is
They
an
can
iteration
clearly
of Enlil,
shapeshift.
is an iteration of I could go on and on
Yeah.
about how
Hmm.
Right.
this
Right.
God
Yeah.
takes on a
Yeah.
different form.
Hermes
Or
and Pan and all of
correct,
these. I mean,
Right.
correct,
Right.
correct.
and Thoth and all of
Huh,
these
Yep.
correct.
gods. It's funny how a lot of them have the same exact symbols all across
Yeah,
And
the world.
the
Hmm.
same
right.
characteristics
And
and
then they have these
And
weaknesses.
you
same
know what?
buildings that they build that the humans
Right.
build because they were required of them
Yeah.
all
Like
over
those
the
Yeah.
interesting
world.
And
cigarettes.
it's
Yeah.
interesting that you bring that point up because you you were just saying this and I was thinking about it a while ago, but now it's even more relevant. So because God knows how we are, and the sons of God, and we didn't even get to that whole point, but just like the other Elohim, I'll just put it that way,
Mhm.
they are also conscious of how we as humans work. right? And
Yeah.
so if God tells us in His Word that revelation is, how does He say it? That revelation is tailored essentially to your understanding of reality, right? He'll
Yeah.
give you
Right.
revelation
He's
in
only going to
proportion.
give you
That's what it is.
what you
He'll give
can
you
possibly
revelation,
understand. Yeah.
correct, in proportion to your comprehension,
Yeah.
right? So if that's true, and the sons of God clearly know that that's the way that they play things, they're gonna play at that too,
Mhm.
at us as well. And so the level of deception, people they
No, those are going to
really
mess
take
with your
things
head,
for,
make
yeah,
you
they
feel
take things
crazy.
for granted, right? That
Right?
it's going to be a piece of cake. Oh, I won't be deceived. Oh, I won't be. I'm like, I don't think you get it, bro. I
Right.
don't think you get it.
Yeah.
These are things that are not even,
Right.
they're not even
And that's
within the
why it
realm
says
of
that if
possibility
it
for
were
you.
possible, the elect would be
Right.
Correct.
because if
That's
you are saved,
exactly
you're
right.
truly saved. You're studying the Word of God, and you are actively looking into these things, and you're
Yes.
not going to be surprised. No, there's
Yeah.
not one thing that's going to happen where it's going to be like, oh well, that just proves that God's not real.
Right.
So,
Right.
If anything, if you keep studying it, you're like, oh, well, that just proves that God is definitely real.
right. Like all of this stuff has really boosted my faith, including the UFO stuff.
Correct.
Because
I
for a
agree
long
with you.
time, I just kind of either ignored it or it was like, man, that kind of if that's true, that proves I'm wrong. And then I'm like, hold on
Yeah.
a second, because honestly, like one of my I've watched every single episode of Ancient Aliens, and that is not something I happily admit. It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I don't
I love it
believe the
too.
things,
Me too. I
I
but
get
love
it.
I
that show. It's
but
No.
great.
here's the thing. I think a lot of what they have to say is true,
Yeah.
but
Through
it's
what
It's
truer
lens,
just
than
right?
what most
it's
people. But through what
twisted.
lens exactly?
Just
Correct.
just a little
It's
smidge
it's
off center.
Yeah.
they're not
Yeah.
from some other planet. They're not
Yeah.
coming here. They are yeah, they are the gods, right? They're the false
You
gods.
know, it goes back to that. Did God really say
Hmm.
exactly
That's another
what
thing.
it is?
I asked Heiser this question once because I got to ask him one question one time, and and I'm going to ask you guys the same question. Do
Yeah.
you
Go for it.
think that those gods, that those ancient false gods, do you think that they
Uh-huh.
had physical interactions with their people?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And
Okay,
here I'll give you one scripture reference that supports that. There are
okay,
more, but I'm just going to
okay.
give you this one. Ricky hears it all the time from me.
Well,
I
as a
Good old
follow up,
know what you're
King
talking about.
Nebuchadnezzar.
as a follow up, do you also think that the depictions that these people made of them or how they presented to them, and then they just presented themselves as various different things to each group?
Definitely
Go
like
ahead, Sean.
Nimrod, Enmar, Gilgamesh, all being the
Hmm.
same. Yeah, 100%.
Hmm. Yeah.
But so go to the story of the three Hebrew boys real quick in your mind. We're gonna assume that everybody
Where's that?
remembers it.
Where is that in? Book of
Daniel,
Book
right?
of
Daniel.
Daniel
Daniel 3, I want to say it is.
2 maybe. Um
Nebuchadnezzar, where
2, 3.
Nebuchadnezzar is actually writing it. Is that the one you're talking
Uh
about?
no, where
No.
Nebuchadnezzar
He
has
chucks him in
his
the fiery furnace.
right. It
Because
is. It's the Hebrew boys
Nebuchadnezzar
in the fiery
two is
furnace.
his dream, the
Yeah.
golden image. Okay, yeah.
So
All
it might
Yep.
be yeah. So it might be 3.
It
So
was
right.
about
three
Yeah.
Hebrew boys
Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
uh-huh decide we're not going to
I
bow,
think I know where you're going with this.
and
not very
so they
kosher.
get thrown into the
Mm-hmm.
fire, right? Too hot, so hot that the guys who throw them in die.
And who did they see
um
with them in there?
right. And what is the king say? How many did we throw in? 3,
Yeah.
right? 3, yeah. There's 4, and the fourth one looks like a god,
Or a son of the god, even
or
sometimes it says. Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Either way,
yeah.
the
Right.
dude recognized him on sight. You know what?
Yeah.
I
Well,
can
and I
look
know a
at
lot of
it.
people look at this and they're like, "Well, it is Jesus in there." Ironically, he is
It
actually
doesn't matter.
describing
They
Jesus,
didn't see Jesus walking
but
down the
he didn't
street.
have any idea who Jesus was, or that
That's
the Hebrews had a concept of
that's
this.
like I can say, "Hey, that's a Ducati," or "Oh, I like that Harley." I can look at a Harley and know what
I'm
one
curious
is. I
to
can look
see
at a
if it actually
Ducati and
says
I can.
B'nai Elohim in here, or if it's just Elohim. The forces.
Why
It
you?
says
It's a good.
Bara Elah. It just says Bar Elah. So I guess son of God or God. I guess.
So yeah. To follow up on Shelley's answer, yes, I
But
absolutely believe that there was. I mean,
because
sorry, do you want to
they
get
talk
to it, Shelley?
about it so well, they talk about it so matter of factly. You know what?
Yeah.
If Daniel had been telling that story and he had said, "I think it's a Ducati," we'd be like, "They don't know what a Ducati is, man.
Right.
I know what a Ducati is because
hmm
I'm a 21st century American who has
Um,
a husband who rides
I was
bikes."
going to say I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought of this one until you were talking about it, but this makes sense to me. Do I think that they had interactions? My quick answer, yes. The example, Sodom and Gomorrah. How did
Mhm.
they know what those dudes? Why were they so interested in those guys? What like
Right.
they knew
Sexually, right?
Yeah.
exactly what they wanted.
Because
They knew
something
exactly
was
what they.
different about yeah,
Yeah.
and that's another thing people don't realize. Like Sodom and Gomorrah, yes, it had to do some with homosexuality, it did, but
So
that is
much more
not
to
the
do with
primary. That's not the
right.
primary reason.
Nope.
Jude tells us this that it was it because they went after.
Right.
It says they went after
Strange
sexual. Well,
flesh.
Strange flesh.
it names two things. It says sexual perversion and strange flesh. So it's not those aren't. It's
hmm
not saying the same thing twice. It's saying
Right.
strange. The word strange flesh there is flesh
That's
that
one
is
of
not the same as yours, as in you are not of the same race.
hmm
So could
that's one
bestiality
of
as well,
Ricky's
but
favorite things
also
to talk
Ooh,
about. I mean,
we could talk
okay.
about that for a
yeah.
long time, man.
Strange flesh.
Um,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
what was I gonna
Most
say? I totally
definitely
forget.
we do. And every society talks
hmm
about
Yeah.
interactions with the gods.
Yeah, yeah. I
Every
was just,
Right.
I was
every
literally
society.
just remembering when you said that that another thing that Chief Joseph Riverwind was talking about with one of no, I take it back. This was L.A. Marzulli. He was talking with Fritz Zimmerman, and they were talking about a book in the book about Comanches. Like it was an actual book
Oh
written
darn it!
by
I
by
didn't go and look that up.
so good, so good.
Sorry.
So he says that the chief in their tales, in their oral tradition, talks about a race of white men who were so well fortified, who were so rich, and who were so powerful that the white men that had come to them in the time that is now, that is in the modern contemporary time,
Mhm.
was infinitesimally more weaker than them.
Yeah.
Way like way
Something
substatus
was
compared to
vastly different between them.
these
Yeah.
Hmm.
white this white race that
Yeah.
existed. So to me, I mean, yes, that we could say those are Nephilim. Sure, fine, okay, but I mean, they still have the semblance of the gods.
Hmm.
I mean, you know, it's all
Yeah.
one and the same. And to answer your other question, do I think that they were drawing images of or making images of what they thought were gods, or what they knew to be gods? Excuse me. Yes, I do. And furthermore, I think that that's why we get different iterations of those
Yeah.
images. Like like I think
Yeah.
that they were literally drawing what was revealed to them, right? I
Yeah.
don't think it's that they had these difficulties drawing the same thing or that they didn't have the proper technique
Right.
Right.
to
Right.
do
Right.
so. I think that it was because we have to remember, right?
That is
In
how they
ancient
looked to
times,
them. That is how they
these
came.
were these were shared ideas, right?
Yeah.
So
Well, and
so
it's like with the serpent
if
in
you
the
had someone
garden.
do an art piece for you, you had to have it commissioned. It
Yeah.
was not like a
Yeah.
small undertaking. This was a whole
Yeah.
village to do this thing.
Yeah,
But
well, and like the serpent in the garden, people get upset with me when I talk when I start to bust down paradigms and beliefs that you've had your whole life. Look,
that'll do it.
I love to do this because I know for me,
Yeah.
I want to know if I'm wrong. I want to
Right.
understand the Bible in the
Absolutely.
Yeah.
way that
Agreed.
God wants me, that God
The
that
truth
has written
matters way more
it.
than
Okay,
me being
and
right.
so
In our
like
pride.
I made a
Yeah.
post that said that Jesus is not a literal lamb and Satan is not a literal serpent, right? John says that he is that old serpent, not that there
Right.
was a possessed snake. Okay,
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
I can't
Correct. I
stress this
hate
enough.
that
It
interpretation. I really
makes
do.
it makes no sense that God punishes all snakes because one got possessed one time against its will.
Right.
And
Right.
that's so
Yeah.
stupid, right? Okay, so we have this being that is referred to as a serpent, or it could even be like a dragon-like
Oh,
figure,
most
a
definitely.
serpentine. Okay, and
Hmm.
then some of the first worshipped beings in Sumer, some of the first beings are
Hmm.
these creatures that are like snake people.
Yeah.
They have like the lower body of humans, and then they have like snake heads, right? So they are actually
Right.
worshiping these beings. This being, they're saying, look, we're worshiping exactly what you're describing here.
Yeah.
Right.
In Genesis 3. And so that's why I keep telling people, like, you've got to get rid of the children's book theology that we all have
Right.
when it comes to these stories, because they are vastly superior when you read them like this.
Yeah.
When you read them from
Right.
this perspective, that creature that was talking to Eve knows that snakes don't talk. She's not stupid, right? I mean, they existed for however long, and we don't know how long they were in the garden. I imagine it was for some time. It wasn't
Well,
just immediately. I mean, I
not
imagine they
only
had to be
that,
there for a while. So she
Eve
would have
and
known. And
Adam, they were part of the divine council. They sat
Right.
on the
right,
divine
well,
council on the mountain of God with the rest of the divine council.
they would have been able to see all of the things that we are incapable of seeing around us.
Right.
Right.
And
All of
so
those
when,
Exactly.
other
because
Yeah.
dimensions.
I am
We
Yep.
convinced
talked at
that
length
that
about that
when
one.
sin hit the world, we lost like
The
half
vision.
of the
Access
things
to
that we could even
dimensions.
see.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Absolutely.
can't see the
Yeah.
infrared, we can't see. I mean, there's so many other things that we are incapable
Right.
of seeing
Yeah. Yep.
that they could see until
Yep.
sin, and so they actually were capable and did speak
Yep.
to these other beings.
Certainly.
And
Yep.
we see this the Satan character falling in this moment. This is his fall. There's no pre-incarnate Satan where there's a before Adam he falls. This
Right.
is
Right.
when
Right.
he falls. Now there may be some things that kind
It's
of led up to it. He gets pissed off
yeah.
because God wants he made us, and Satan didn't like that because he's like, look how
Yeah.
awesome I am. And so then he gets pissed off, but it probably wasn't a big to do. He was just like, he came up with this plan, and he's like, all right, I'm gonna,
Yeah.
because he
It's
hears
impressive.
God tell Adam not to eat from the tree, but he doesn't hear him say it to Eve.
Yeah.
So Eve gets that second hand through Adam. That's why he goes
Right.
to Eve.
That's why
And
she's
it
a weak
even
link.
says, well, it even says that Adam was not deceived in Hebrew. The
Right.
Hmm.
only
Right.
Eve was.
He
And
was
it's
a
quite
traitor.
right.
Yeah.
Well,
That's
it's
accurate.
also, I've heard it put this way, and I'm not putting any stock in this, but it's also, you could also look at it as one of the first love stories, right? Because however long they were in the Garden of Eden together, they were in there alone together, the only humans. They had nothing to do but to spend time with each other in paradise, right? The amount of love that you can have for somebody grows quite quickly. And as soon as Eve does this, as soon as Eve eats this, he doesn't want to live without her. And so he does it himself. I don't
Hmm.
put any stock in that. I think that's an interesting take. I think it's
That
just as
that is the
possible as
same
anything else.
exact story that I told an hour ago.
Yep. It sure is.
And he
Yeah,
fell
Everything
in
for
love
love.
with
right.
her.
And it was
Like,
stupid of him.
oh
He
my
was
gosh,
stupid.
it
He shouldn't
kills
have
me
done it
sometimes.
regardless.
You
He
know,
shouldn't have
it's
done it
it's im-
regardless.
it's super important that you're mentioning about like we have such a mental disconnect with this whole like, well, but it was just Adam and Eve, and they didn't know anyone else, and this whole like weird mysterious idea that we have about it, when in
Right.
reality
They
we're
weren't just
all
by
we're
themselves and that was
all
it.
yeah, no, but even more so, we're all family.
Yeah.
We're family,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? We are waiting to be revealed to the sons of glory, and
Yeah.
for them to be revealed to us. Like
Yeah.
that is the
Well,
hope
and
that
they
we've
weren't
moved
in
towards,
the
We
right?
Garden of
What we
Eden the
what
whole
we
time. They
originally
would
had.
go to the Garden of Eden like every
Correct,
day
right.
to
correct.
tend it. They lived outside of the Garden
Yeah.
of Eden. The whole world wasn't Eden, right?
Yes,
The Garden of Eden
Right.
is
exactly.
a specific
They
place,
had They had to
that they
It was
would
domesticate
it
them
was
go
the
to bring it
to.
meeting
under
place
authority.
between
Yep.
God and man, just like
Yep.
Right.
when man tried to make their own meeting place
It was
with
their tabernacle.
Babel.
And
Yeah.
that's the whole point of the Bible, is to bring us back to Eden, to
Yeah.
where we don't have that separation anymore.
Yep.
That's the whole
That's
that I mean,
exactly
that
right.
ties all of this together. That is the reason why God gets super pissed off about the angels, because that was immediately attacking his plan
Hmm.
to bring us back to Eden. Every single time that
Yeah.
that stuff happened, it was one more chance that somebody was going to screw this up to where we couldn't get back to Eden with him. And he wanted so desperately for us to be able to do that,
Yeah.
that he loved us so much that he drowned the entire earth, because he wanted to make sure
Sure did.
that that the Messiah was able to come, so we could
Right.
commune with him personally. We could
Yeah.
actually be with him and experience him in a
Man.
way that we were meant to be. And I know people that I used to think the idea of heaven was boring. But first of all, we live on a new earth, right? That means he's gonna bring back freaking dinosaurs, uh, and he's gonna create a whole new cosmos. And I am fully convinced. I don't have any scripture for this, but you could not tell me otherwise, that we are going to be able to explore that new cosmos
I
Of
and
course,
agree. I look
see God's
forward
new
to
creation.
that. Yeah,
And it's going
yeah.
to be actual freaking Star
bro.
Trek.
It's absolutely well
We're going to
Yeah.
be able.
because
It's going to be the
because
best.
that's Big Brother tech. We're gonna get access to Big Brother tech on the regular. We're gonna
But
be
Right.
it's
able to
Well,
gonna
and
work
enjoy
we'll
that
be
right.
regular.
right,
Exactly.
and we
It's
will be able
gonna
to
work
explore
right.
this
I'm so
new creation,
excited
and
about
we'll get to
the
see
new
new
Earth
things that He
internet.
creates. Yes. And so I'm so excited about that. So just for the last topic that I want to kind of talk about is
Yeah, man.
more modern Nephilim stuff, okay? Because like I know
Mhm.
that there's the story
Well,
of the
we've talked about
military
UFOs a
groups,
little bit.
right? But there's the story of the Kandahar giants.
Mhm.
Right, right.
There's that story. There's other stories that I've heard, but also because a lot of people don't realize, like the Native Americans talk about
Absolutely.
these
Oh yeah.
red-haired giants that they were
Mhm.
terrified of, and how the only way that they could ever kill them was to trap them in a cave and set a fire
Murder
in
'em.
it, and kill them. And so they were terrified of these things. And so what people don't realize is, like, this is why God said get rid of every single one of them,
Mhm.
because some of them were able to leave when they
They're
didn't
gonna
do
branch
that.
out. Yeah.
They actually were able to leave because they didn't kill. Every single time they didn't listen to
Right.
God, some of
Mhm.
them left.
Yeah.
And some of
Yeah.
them went as far as they could possibly go, and they made
Yeah.
it all the way to the Americas.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I'm sure there are still some. I think they're kind of fewish and far between
Mm.
because
Hmm.
they do a pretty good job of not being seen anyhow. Although Tim
Now they're
If you
Alberino,
go on
my
TikTok long enough, you'll find people that swear
right.
they
Well,
found like
my
a giant
favorite
door.
oh, I see stuff like that all the
Yeah.
time. My algorithms are definitely they know that the giants are on my
Yeah,
radar.
and
But
I watched that crap, but it's just trash
yeah,
for the
most of
most part.
it
Yeah,
nothing looks
Yeah.
super convincing. Although
right.
the door down in the
The door
bottom
one,
of the Grand Canyon,
Ooh, now that's a
there's
different story.
something
yeah.
there.
There's some weird stuff with the guy that supposedly went down into to a like a cavern or something like that, and he ended up finding like a long city after walking miles. And
Yeah.
I don't remember his
There's
name, but
interesting
and there's
stuff.
Egyptian artifacts down there and all.
Yeah.
And oh, but
In
there was a
Utah, isn't that one
there
down
was
under
a
Utah or
mhm.
Alabama? No, no,
Well,
Arkansas.
Ohio.
there was a show called
Or
America
no,
on
that's
Earth.
Serpent Mounds in Ohio.
Yeah,
What are you
well,
thinking of?
It's
there's a
they
show
just
called
found it in
America on Earth,
Arkansas. Uh-huh.
and they it got
Oh, the
canceled after this
brothers.
episode No. This is a different one. We'll talk about that one too. But it's called
Oh,
America Unearthed, and they talked about the Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon and
Mm,
stuff. They were canceled after this episode, and they
of
black
course it would.
helicopters showed up whenever they went. I mean, on freaking every time people have said all of this stuff happened. I know you can make all this stuff, but it was odd that they got canceled.
right.
And then there's the Searching for Giants History Channel episode or season that
That's
had
yeah,
one
you're right.
season.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, the one season with the two brothers, and the
Yeah.
very last up, they found a giant tomb, and the very last episode was supposed to be that they were going to dig it up. And then they never aired that final episode and canceled the show and said that it was because nobody was watching it. And a lot of people were freaking watching
Yeah,
it because they went from Ancient Aliens to that, and millions of
right.
people watch Ancient Aliens.
As you do.
Yeah, geez.
It's
Kidding me.
amazing what the History Channel has become. But I just found that kind of stuff is interesting. But also, people don't realize if you go and you search up on the internet, you go to you can just search it up on Google, but you can actually go to any newspaper like archiving place, and you search up giant human skeletons. You
Mm-hmm.
will find in the early 1800s all the way
Mm.
up until a certain event happens in around 1930, 1940. You will find all of these people having findings of giant skeletons, some of them
Yeah.
having double rows of teeth,
Yep.
and some of these some of these are, and they find hundreds of them piled together. And some, they say that they're 10, 12, 13, and something like 14 feet tall.
Wow.
And there was one that said that the head was like this freaking big. Okay. And these people, they're not stupid people. Okay. And this is like the New York Times that is
Mm-hmm.
saying these things. The New
Yeah.
York
Yeah.
Times has articles talking about these, and they'll say, "Oh, well, this was just them finding a mastodon skull, and they were just misinterpreting it." And these people are like, "No, nope, that's not true. I know what a mastodon looks like.
Right.
This
The
is not that."
elephant.
Right. And they are finding hundreds and hundreds of these. This is why I said the Smithsonian has the bones,
Oh, they
because
do.
here's the
Yeah.
thing: the moment that evolution gets started being taught in schools, these stories disappear.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And you can't hear about them again, right? Because in all of,
Doesn't fit
I mean,
the narrative.
Abraham Lincoln literally talks about the giants that used to roam this land. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln.
Hmm.
It says the giants used to roam this land. I'll have to look up what speech it was, but he
Wow.
absolutely says that. And like,
That's
this is
interesting.
just something that everybody
Well,
knew
good old Paul
during that
Bunyan.
time. Right.
There's
And this big blue ox.
yep, and big blue
Yep.
ox babe.
Yep.
So one of the things that was always interesting to me about eschatology is the getting modern Americans to worship something.
Mhm.
It seems so far-fetched.
Yeah.
Americans don't bow down before nothing.
But something is going to be different about this because it says he brings life to the image of the beast. And I think that's some sort of
Yeah.
artificial intelligence stuff going on
That's
Yep.
that's where I would go. I really have to think, and I have really believed since I was a pre-teenager that the Antichrist would get his power from aliens.
there. Yeah.
That
Yeah.
that
Well,
that
go
is
and
why
read,
the whole world
and he will
will.
have actual power. People don't realize this. Like, these beings,
Yeah.
they have power.
Oh,
Go and read
absolutely.
Exodus about the
Yep.
magicians,
Yep.
Janus and Jambres, and they
Yep.
have actual magic that they do.
Yeah.
It says that they do it by their dark arts. Not
So
that they
God,
faked it like in the Prince of Egypt and they sprinkled the little thing that made it look like blood. No, they turned
right.
it into blood.
That's why God doesn't give us um commands not to do something that cannot be
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
When he
Right,
tells us
right.
don't
Don't do
play with
necromancy. Don't
witchcraft,
do. Yeah.
don't summon the dead, guess what? I guess that means the dead can be summoned, because
Samuel 28:13.
that witch of Endor, she was
Yeah.
shook to her core. Why did you have me
Mhm.
actually
Right.
conjure up Samuel?
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
So,
Another thing on the Exodus thing that I just found out recently, because one of my followers pointed it out, is when Moses throws the staff onto the ground, or Aaron throws the staff onto the ground, the word that it says that it turns into is not nakash or serpent. It turns into tanin, which is the biblical word for a dragon or a dinosaur. And so they had a freaking Pokemon dragon fight. That makes it so much cooler.
gotta catch them
I need
all.
I need for them to do a remake of Prince of Egypt and make it a dragon instead
I
and
choose you,
change it.
Pikachu.
Yes. I mean, he told me that, and I didn't believe him, and I went and looked, and you can ask my wife. I was just like, I came in, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. Because I've looked up Tanin before, and I highlighted all of it in my Bible app, and I never saw that one, and I don't know why, because I had just taught on dinosaurs like a week before that, and I was like, and I missed this.
You'll learn that this happens every time, dude. As soon as you finally release an episode, like you start getting all this information. You're like, well,
Yeah,
I
Like
freaking wish I
2 weeks
would have known
after.
that
yeah,
for
Where do you?
this
yeah.
episode. That always
He's gonna
happens.
have to
It
make
always
another one
happens.
at some point. Yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
man.
Yeah.
We're gonna go in more in depth.
Uh, so it
Absolutely.
kind of brings us into one more thing, and this is the topic that some people, as soon as you hear it, you're gonna just roll your eyes, you're gonna turn it off. Okay, this is the topic of alien abduction, and this
I ain't rolling mine.
topic is not you guys. I know you guys are.
Oh yeah.
We're tracking. We've been going for almost 3 hours
Oh,
nonstop,
we're
and I could
tracking.
go for three more, but we're gonna end it here in just a few minutes because I
Oh
gotta
gosh,
start
it's
my new job
already your
tomorrow.
midnight times, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm good. I
Good, bro.
usually only sleep like 3 or 4 hours a night anyway. So
Oh no, I can't do that. Sorry, I'm gonna have to bail earlier than
yeah, no. We're gonna wrap it up here in just a second. I just want to kind of talk about the UFO alien kind of alien abduction
that. Hmm.
phenomenon, because I don't think that it's aliens coming from outer space to take things. I think I made that clear. I know you guys
Right.
don't think that.
Nope.
But they are creating when a lot of these people will say that there is a sexual component to this.
Absolutely.
That some ladies have said that they have found out that they were pregnant, they get
Hmm.
abducted, and then that baby is gone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I mean, some really strange freaking things.
Yeah.
Go listen to Blurry Creatures podcast. If you haven't listened, they go into this
Hmm.
kind of stuff. I'm not going to go super. It is very, very, very interesting. And there's a
Yeah. It's
lot of
unsettling too.
hoaxy, weird kind of stuff out there. But
Sure.
like I said, it only takes one to be telling the truth.
What?
And I'll
Right.
tell you, I had a sleep paralysis
Mm.
experience that can only be described as something that where I was almost abducted. Because and it's the reason why me and my wife are back together because we had broken up, and I was living in my apartment and I'd fallen asleep on the couch, and I'd had like some minor sleep paralysis where I just woke up and I couldn't move, but this is the first time I saw stuff, and
Mm.
I fell asleep on my couch, and I wake up and I'm fully awake. I know I'm wide awake. I am like, and it's scaring the crap out of me because I'm just only able to breathe. Right, I'm struggling just to breathe because it's just I mean it's terrifying. I don't know if you ever had sleep
Hmm.
paralysis. It's the scariest experience
Yeah,
ever.
I've had it
But
before.
I look up and I see three of these beings over me, and they've got like this bulbous heads, but they kind of look like their bodies are made of static, right? Like on the TV, like old TV, when you turn it on, there's nothing there.
Hmm.
It's the old static. It looked like that, but it had like the outline of the alien looking gray kind of thing. And they were
The
looking
Grays.
over me from the back of my couch, looking over me, and they just kind of motion,
Creepy
and
dudes.
I start lifting up off of my couch, and
Mm.
I had actually watched a doc. I'd heard I hadn't watched the documentary this one, but I had heard people talking about if you say Jesus, it ends. And so I could barely breathe. I couldn't even open my mouth. So I was like this. And all I could say was Jeebus, right? Because I couldn't even open my mouth. So it sounded like Jeebus. And I immediately fell to the ground. Immediately fell to the ground. And I mean, when I tell you I freaked out and panicked, I called my wife. Now we were broken up, and I was like, "Please come over here now." And we've been back together ever since then. So I think that the alien abductions for and there was no spaceship involved in that, right? There was no ship involved. I don't know where they were planning on taking me, but that I mean, when I mean, I dropped like this far. It wasn't just like a tiny little fall. It was like I fell and rolled off the couch, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" And then I watched this documentary called The Nightmare after this, and it's a documentary I highly recommend. It's on sleep paralysis, and it is amazing. Describe some of the exact things that happened to me happening to other people.
I believe it.
And there's even the story of this guy in there who was an atheist who became a Christian because the only thing that stopped his sleep paralysis was the name of Jesus.
Don't be calling it Buddha if you're going to get sucked up into a starship, bro.
And it
Not unless
blew
you
my
want to
mind.
keep going.
And so I say that to say, I think Nephilim now are definitely not giants anymore.
No, now their iteration is alien.
So it has been more of an experiment to try to figure out how to make this work over the span of thousands. You've had plenty of time to try it out, and like before 100 years ago, who were people going to tell?
Right. Tell your tiny little village. Right.
Tell your village, make a drawing, and that's about it.
So I think, man, this is a big old can of worms, dude. I'm going to try and keep it as brief as I can.
I know, I just opened up a big topic. But
yeah, it's humongous. People always ask us about this. What are aliens? I'm like, that's a stupidly large topic, so I'm going to,
like I said, keep it brief. All demons.
No, they're not.
They're not all demon. They are demonic, but they are not all demon.
So I think that a lot of aliens are host bodies or avatars for demons, which are
I just think
I've heard that before. Something, and that's why I like their expressionless and they don't.
17th generation or so.
I think they can also be. I think that they can also literally just be more iterations of Nephilimic and hybrid type
like a biological robot kind of.
Yes.
Thing,
well, then there's also that. That's also another one. There's also robots. There is also, I think
kind of like they want to do with injecting our consciousness into other beings. It's the same kind of thing, and that's how they're going to kind of help us do that.
And I think that all of that kind of stuff also is going to be like, I think it's just like we're talking about how this is so weird, right? Like there's so many aspects of it. I think that the Great Deception will probably play out along those lines. It'll probably be a series of things that you can do to adjust your body to be qualified, just like a vaccine passport, same kind of idea, right? As long as you got one that's kind of works with the rest of them, you'll be compatible. You'll be able to keep going.
Well, and I think that's why they're playing with mRNA so strongly because it honestly is a mobile form of CRISPR. We're going to go ahead and splice and dice that DNA, and you're going to.
I already told my job under no circumstances am I getting that vaccine. So if you try to make me, I'm not.
To quote Elon Musk, with the right amount of injections, you can turn you into a freaking butterfly. So there's that.
Right. Well, and probably literally at some point fairly soon.
Yeah, no, I mean that. I mean that very literally. So to answer your question, it is highly convoluted, and people have to come to terms with the fact that things don't fit in boxes. and you have to be okay with that, and you have to seek the Lord for clarity on things. Like
Just
that's
like you
it.
can't just say all the angels are supernatural, so they can't do. They're spiritual, so they can't do X.
Right.
Right,
Right.
right.
Oh,
You can't have
and I was
sex with
even gonna say,
humans.
bro, like I think that some of the alien phenomena is probably the high level sons of God themselves showing
Yep.
up in ships and doing the stuff that
True.
they need to
Oh
take care of
yeah.
stuff that they
I,
got to.
I also think that the good guys have ships
I
as well.
agree. I
Agreement.
also think that,
Uh,
Agreement.
and so I don't think that every
but I
single
don't think
thing
they're
that we
abducting
see
us.
up in the sky. No, I don't think that
So
either.
when Daniel's friend came to him and said, "Dude, I left. I came to you the
Mm-hmm.
day you started praying, but
And it
the
took me
Prince of
2 or 3
Persia
weeks or whatever. Yeah.
engaged me in
Mm-hmm.
warfare, and I couldn't get away until Michael came and engaged him so that I
That's
could
such a
get to you."
weird passage. I
It
love it.
makes so much sense. It makes
But
so much
if
sense.
you put
Yeah.
that, if you in your brain think of that in, gosh, I'm gonna so date myself, but in Battlestar Galactica,
Hmm.
Oh, it's a good show.
like I just see the Cylons and the humans
Yeah.
in their little
Well,
ships and
I'm just thinking of the go old. How do you say that? In well, you've never seen it.
Oh,
oh
the
Maybe
Goa'uld.
oh
old.
Yeah.
Go old. Yeah,
The Goa'uld. Yeah.
in
same kind of
in
concept. Possessors of the body, and
Stargate.
so
Stargate. Yeah.
Stargate.
yeah,
There you go.
Stargate.
I watched
I
all
love
10 of
that
those
series.
seasons like back to back because I never watched it as a kid.
So good.
And I always thought
I
it was
always watched it
stupid
as a
and
kid.
nerdy. And then I was like,
Oh, it's
this is
so
the best
good.
freaking show
Oh,
ever.
I'm nerdy, so
They're trying to
I
bring it back,
enjoy.
but they're probably going to make it like pansexual,
Yeah,
Oh
stupid
God,
exactly.
I'm sure
nonsense.
they will. But the whole like Stargate gave it all away.
Hmm.
Oh, look,
Hmm.
Oh yeah.
between the
Oh, I
pyramid and
loved it.
the
I
ancient
loved it
things
because I was like, oh yeah,
oh
this
look,
makes complete
there are
sense.
the ancient gods. Here they are. Oh, full circle
Yeah.
iteration. Like I completely.
Except
Here's
that they
here's
don't really have to
here's
use stargates to get where they needed to go. I mean, the
May
sons of God.
maybe not. So you have talked
Hmm.
about
Yeah.
CERN, and I think that what CERN is really doing is trying to open gates
Oh yeah.
between dimensions so that
Hmm.
Tartarus can be
Yeah.
opened, so that
Well,
Hmm.
well,
Apollyon
and
and
that
his group can
reminds
get
me
out.
because the in Revelation, I think it's 13. I'm not sure. 13:8 maybe. I'm that could be completely wrong. Uh, it talks about the Euphrates River drying up
Yeah.
and
Right,
these
right,
beings being released.
right,
And it is
Yep.
talking
right,
about these sons of God being released at that
right.
Yeah.
time to
These
wreak
are the
havoc.
ones
This is when you
who
start
are
to
in the
see the
gloomy darkness.
creepy locusts,
Yep.
Yep,
right? When you see the
yep,
bottomless pit opened
Yep.
up and these
yep.
things come out, this is them.
Yep.
they have
Correct.
See,
they
but
aren't
that
it's
now
not Apache attack helicopters. It is these actual creepy as hell
right.
beings that God has released, and they can't attack us. They're not allowed
No, because we're sealed.
to.
Right.
But they can attack
But
and
that
do
that
attack
is
everyone else.
pretty late in the game, which
Yeah, I
ugh,
think we're gone at that point. But that's the point where they are wanting to die and are incapable of. And I
and
sure would
because
want to
of the
die at
steam,
that time
right?
because that is horrible. But that is
Right.
the whole entire story of the Bible from Genesis 6 all the way to that moment. This is why we've been talking about this for 3 hours now, because and we're just scratching the very
There's a ton
Right.
of stuff I would
Right.
have wanted to talk about. We
the
didn't. We
very
didn't.
tip
We
of the
literally
surface.
didn't even. We literally didn't even break down who the sons of God are, who the Watchers are, who the Elohim are, who the
Right.
Nephilim actually
Right.
are, who the demons are. For the most part,
This
we didn't break any of that
that's
shit
why I
down.
say like I wanted to do a thorough episode that covers everything, like as much like a whole wide range of everything, but there is
Very hard
so
to
There's
much
too
do.
much.
more to
There's too
this.
much stuff.
Well, I mean, I
We
think
took
we've
a
done a pretty
year.
good job of going over the basics of every part of it almost. I
Yeah.
mean, you could, from what we've talked about today, you could find everything else out if you know what
Yeah.
to look for.
Sure.
Right.
So,
No, we
and I
did a good
challenge
job
people.
in 3 hours what
Yeah,
Ricky and I took 2023 to
yeah.
do.
Pretty
You
much.
see, and I challenge people not to just believe the things that we have to say. Go and do it
Go
yourself.
check them
Go
out,
look
man.
at
Never.
Genesis 6. Go look at Genesis 6, and then go read Job 1 and tell me you don't know who the sons of God are. They absolutely are the same, right?
Yeah.
The term is only ever used of these beings.
Yeah.
All right, and this is the whole
Beneha
idea that
Elohim.
we can only, like, I love people. It's funny, like, or it's common for people to say we're all just children of God. No, we're not. We are not all children of God. We are
No.
not sons and daughters of God.
No.
None of us are until
Jesus gave us the
Jesus came,
right to
and
become.
we
That's
can
right.
Praise the
become
Lord that He
adopted as
did.
the sons of God to
Right.
replace those. And this is why it says that we will
Yeah.
judge angels.
Right.
Right? It says that we
Right.
will judge it. And honestly, in Genesis 6, if you go and you read Genesis 6 in the Septuagint, which is the Greek version of the Old
Mm-hmm.
Testament,
Mm-hmm.
which is about 300 years BC that it was created, it actually uses the Greek word angelos, which is angels in place of
Mm-hmm.
sons of
Which
God.
means
So
Mm-hmm.
this
messengers.
is right, and that's a whole nother discussion. But
That's a
uh,
whole.
yeah, what someone's saying, like, there is so much to this, and we're going to break all of this up and put a bunch of clips out over the next. I'm going to work on it this weekend and kind of cut up a bunch of stuff because I got this new job that I'm doing. I may do some a little bit here and there every night because I'm excited to get this out. But I really. I'm really thankful that you guys came on today. I
Absolutely,
cannot
dude.
thank you enough. This
It was
has
so
been
fun.
so therapeutic for me because I don't
Oh.
have I honestly I don't have a whole lot of people that want to talk about this stuff. Uh,
We get it.
I'm trying
We
to
totally get it.
proselytize that. I mean,
That's
but
what, you know
when
what?
I
We're on
taught
the
about
same
it,
road.
right, when I taught about it at church, it's hit or miss if people are going to actually like it or
Yeah.
not. And the ones that do love it.
1 out
I
of
mean, the ones that
20.
Yeah.
do,
Right.
right. But I mean,
No
they were
kidding.
so disinterested in it, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? This is
You
the
kidding?
Bible.
This is so
You know what?
This
You,
tells
interesting.
the
Right.
story of God has a family. It's the whole Bible.
Yep.
God has
yeah,
a
man.
family.
Yep.
God has a family. A lot of them betray Him three
Yeah.
times.
I know.
3 times He gets betrayed. Most people don't realize that either. There's Satan, there's the fallen sons of God, and then there's then there's the Genesis 6 angels. There's 3 different
Yep.
times that He gets betrayed by
Oh
His
no, no.
family.
And then there's humanity.
Right, and that doesn't even include us screwing Him over, right?
Yep.
Right.
And so He gets screwed, but He wants for us to be reunited to Him. So the whole
Man.
Old Testament is Him protecting the Israelites
Yeah.
through all of this, through all of these things, all this craziness,
Yeah.
so He can get to where He can say, okay, the Messiah can come now. And when the Messiah comes, then He starts dismantling all of the things that these other beings did, all of
Yep.
the ancient gods. He's still dismantling that to this day. But
Right.
notice, where are the Greek gods now? Where are
They're
they?
on spaceships. They're little
They
green
they
men.
they still exist.
Oh yeah.
Uh, and I loved in Stargate how the Thor was a gray alien behind the
Yep.
scenes. Right?
Yeah, he sure was.
I mean,
He
that,
sure was.
but unironically and real life, please. Right?
So
That's
not giving this a plug because it's very debauched, but American Gods
You were talking about
yeah.
that.
really
I
like
wanted to watch that, but I saw it was just there's just a
it's
bunch of
dark.
not,
There's a lot of stuff on it that is
there's a lot of
not
nudity stuff where
wholesome.
I wouldn't watch it.
There's
Yeah,
plenty, but their premise is that these old gods have new iterations, and it's
yeah.
Yep.
very I couldn't finish, I think, even the first season because it
If
is
you like
very
that,
unwholesome.
there's an author whose name is Brahm. Okay, Brom, and he wrote this book called Lost Gods, and that is my absolute favorite fictional book ever. It is a story about a man who gets killed and sent to the underworld where all of the old gods who are no longer worshipped still reign, and he has to break out of there to help his girlfriend who is pregnant, who's being like who's it's just this whole huge thing. It is the most awesome freaking story. I love that because it talks
That's
about
crazy.
all of these old gods and all. I love that kind of stuff. It is so intricate and so freaking cool, dude. I'll probably read it again because I love that book.
Okay,
Uh,
so not intricate, but on the same in the same vein is the Percy Jackson series,
yep.
which is
Mhm.
geared for kids,
Yep.
kind of.
Hey, I love anything that has to do with
But
this kind of stuff. I love it.
the way the way the gods still survive in the modern world is very interesting.
Yeah.
You know, Olympus has moved. It is now in San Francisco, you know,
Mhm.
or and
Sounds
also
about right.
in New York City and the top of oh come
Yeah.
on, what's that really tall
Empire
uh
State
The
Building.
Empire
Empire
State
State
Building.
Building?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's interesting, and
That's really
that's one of
cool.
the things Derek Gilbert and his crew like to talk about in A View from
Uh,
the Bunker,
no,
Yeah.
uh,
Iron and Myth.
Iron
Yeah.
and Myth.
Mhm.
They'll bring up all of these ways where they're showing their hand. They're showing their
Mhm.
hand so
Right,
frequently
because there's a lot of
in our
glimpses of truth throughout all of
entertainment.
it. Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
so much.
I mean,
Hollywood
they
Hollywood
have
is
this
like,
knack
here
of
it
telling
is.
exactly what their hand is before they do all of these things,
Yeah.
because they're arrogant.
Well,
So,
not only are they
Well,
arrogant,
isn't that
but
what
it's
every bad
there's
guy does
there's
yeah,
you know?
certainly,
reveals their
but
plans
the
beforehand.
the
Wow.
programming is necessary, right? I mean, the
Yeah.
programming is necessary because we need
Right.
to be primed. If we're
Mhm.
not primed, we won't accept it. Like we'll
Right.
just
If
reject
Right.
TV
it out of hand.
didn't if TV didn't exist, there'd be a lot of less problems with all
You
this
know,
kind of stuff.
If TV
I
didn't
played in a
exist, none of us would care about aliens.
Right.
band back in the day, man, when I was in high school called the Remedials, and it was there was a song. I mean, the whole thing was media, and it was an acronym for annihilate, edifying, destruction, inflicted on all. Is what it meant. But the whole premise was that precisely, right? Like, if you lend
Yeah.
ear to the media, you lend ear to all sorts of weird ideas, concepts,
Yeah.
other ways of
Programming.
following.
Yeah.
You're
That's why they
you're a
Programming.
call it
moron. You're a
programming.
moron.
That is.
Exactly.
Yeah. And you watch these
And
Grammys
no
or
red
you watch
flags
Taylor
went up.
Swift concerts, and they are just literally worshiping the devil. They just are. I
Yeah,
mean, it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
I always laugh because it's like people used to say that metal was like of the devil, and now like pop
Right.
music is
You should
actually of the devil,
see.
and all the old metalheads are coming to Christ.
Did you see that? Did you see
Yep.
that meme that I posted a while back, dude? It was Taylor Swift, and she was holding like a martini or something. She was kind of like looking in the distance, and it just says that moment when you realize that you're the pop version of selling your soul to the devil for rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they all
The
talk
sad
about
thing
this stuff
is
too.
it's
That's a
just
whole
so
nother
much truth.
rabbit trail that I'm gonna go down at some point because like
Oh
Beyonce, she
yeah.
literally says that a being called Sasha Fierce takes over her every time she performs. That's not my words. That's her words to Oprah.
Whoa,
Yeah, she go type in Beyonce
Well,
and
so
Sasha Fierce, and you will find some creepy stuff
Beyonce
because
and what?
she's Sasha Fierce.
Sasha Fierce.
Fierce, yeah, and it's creepy stuff. I mean, she talks about how this thing takes over her, and she's like a really meek and mild and timid person in these
Yeah,
interviews, and then she gets on stage, she's completely different. Right? She's
jeez.
this bold and creepy and sexual, kind of doing all this stuff,
right,
and and her husband, they're all Illuminati scum, anyways, which I don't
right.
believe Illuminati in that sense. But I do believe that there's some real stuff going on with all of
Yeah, these guys
it.
I think are doing some sort of play
They believe
acting, but it's enough real.
in it. They believe in it. So
Yeah.
It's
that's
enough real that without Christ. Mm,
Yeah, yeah.
mm-mm-mm.
Yeah.
And it's terrifying because our kids are all in this world under this stuff, and it is shoved down their throats. And I mean, it
Yep.
is completely terrifying
Sure is, man.
because
And the stuff
if you just
is
listen to Taylor Swift or any of these, it sounds so benign. And so, I mean, that's why, like with metal, they were like, oh, it just sounds evil. And now, like metal is like, we will storm the gates of hell and we will tear it to the ground. and then pop music is like, we're selling our soul to the devil.
right. Run,
Yeah.
better run, outrun my bullets, and
Yeah,
everybody's just
yep.
jamming along. It's so much fun, and then
Outrun
you
my gun at the
realize,
school shooting.
yep,
Yep.
yep. You know what
How it
though?
goes.
Be beware the ones who are in cheerleading outfits and looking sweet. I'll take the
Oh,
Yeah.
golf girl any
that was
Oh, I
day.
know.
never a
Yeah.
problem for me.
Yeah.
No, me neither, and I'm still a little bit prejudiced, I'm not gonna lie. If
Yeah.
you look torn and tattered, I
Yeah.
probably am gonna
Want to
Here
talk to you?
towards you. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I will trust in you before I believe in the clean shaven, nicely sewn up. Mm,
That's
Yeah.
why I grew my beard back out.
Yeah.
yeah, he needs
Yeah.
to
I'm growing
get
mine out
to
too.
it, 12-year-old.
I know.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, guys. Well, we can kind of wrap it up because it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning here now. I'm so
Yeah,
Sure
excited
is.
about this interview, man.
Oh
It's
man.
this
been
was
so
so good.
awesome. Really hasn't been an interview. It's just been a conversation about awesome stuff, and this
Right.
has really been some exactly what I've been needing for a while, man. I'm going through a
Good,
lot
man.
in my life right now, but I love this kind of stuff. I could talk to you guys for just 40 more hours straight and then without skipping a beat. And
That's how
it's
it feels.
amazing how we're able to just
We'll
keep
get
talking
together
and
Yeah, man.
anytime,
we
Clayton.
kind of
Anytime you
Yeah.
pre-planned a
want.
little bit, but we didn't really go according to that script. I didn't have a script today. I just started talking.
No, you're good,
Yeah.
dude.
And that's why like this topic is one that I am so sure that I could talk about for forever.
Right. It's
And honestly,
we
every year I'm
walk
going
the
to
same
have
road.
a Nephilim month where I talk about this topic. I am. I mean, and it's going to be February. It's going to be my Nephilim month where I talk about this stuff because it is that important.
Nephilim History Month.
I was just gonna say that
History
crap.
month. There you
I was
go.
just gonna say
Nephilim
that.
history month. I'm going to do it. That is perfect, and
That's
I'm stealing that
fantastic.
idea. That's freaking awesome.
All
Because I
yours.
because I don't want to just talk about
That's
this
so
topic
funny.
on my podcast because I really I want people to. This is how you can understand the Old Testament. But my main goal is to help people understand the Bible as a whole. Now
Oh, that's good, man.
this helps you understand a basis for this. This helps answer some really tough questions about the Old Testament.
Mm-hmm.
Once I've
About
figured
the
this out,
whole Bible.
right, but even like the really uncomfortable stuff,
Certainly.
Yeah,
like
but
the
now your Bible
genocide
makes
stuff, where
sense.
God is a
Right.
genocidal
Yeah.
maniac, and nope, God was actually doing that so we could have us, so we can have a Messiah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
Totally.
yeah, so I mean that's the entire reason for it. And now
Yeah.
absolutely.
it's tough because you like if it's not that kind of questioning isn't going to work for an atheist. Like if you tell them that, oh, that's just it's because he's killing the Nephilim. They've never even
Right.
heard it. I guarantee you. But now they're most Christians, and because I had I was in my parents' class, Sunday school class, like last year, and they were teaching on this topic. And the guy, they were talking about the genocide stuff, and they're reading about it. You know, God says, "Kill every man, woman, and child," and he's like
Mm-hmm.
sobbing, he's like crying, and he's just like,
Oh,
I find this so hard. I just don't understand how
stomach.
God
Understand.
can do this. And I'm just like, and
Yeah.
I talked to him afterwards, and I told him, I said, look, this is not what it seems. You've got to
Let
you,
me give you this
let me
key
tell you this.
because as
And but
soon
here's the
What's up?
problem: it just glossy eyed because they just have no clue because no one ever talks about this in the church, and that is a
Yeah.
shame. That is a damn shame
it
because
is,
this is so important to
That's
it
talk
is.
about.
that's
But you
been
know what?
our
The
whole
enemy
purpose as a
knew
podcast,
Right?
frankly.
that's how he neuters us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's been the whole purpose of this podcast is to talk about stuff that people, in the church are unwilling to talk about, because if they're not going to talk about it in the four walls, we're going to talk about it outside the four walls, and
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I
very
always tell
comfortably.
people, like, if you don't want your kids talking about this stuff or questioning God or all that, they're going to do it anyways. You just should rather have them be answered from somebody who has the same faith in them rather than a professor
Right.
whose goal is to make them stop believing in God.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, I teach apologetics at a youth church camp every year. And I'm telling you, man, I tell them I'll be here for a couple of days and you can just come up to me and you can ask me any question that you want and I will answer it. And I never have a moment alone whenever I
No.
do that, like
No.
the
Yep.
entire time that I'm there, because
Kids are
somebody is
thirsty and hungry,
always
man.
there asking me
Absolutely.
because no one is answering their
Yeah.
questions.
Right.
Yeah.
And that breaks my heart because that's why
You
I
know
left
what?
the
Yep.
church.
You know
And
what it
my,
is,
That's
my
why I
Ryan?
early
left
It's
my youth
it's
group.
people. It's yeah. I mean, that's why I frankly struggled for years to understand why the Bible was even relevant. I was just like, it just doesn't seem. Why do all these other religions have all these powers, and the Bible that I know is true should have all this power, and I don't see it. But what I was going to say
yeah,
is, I think a lot of
all the
what's
demons are
happening,
still active, but the
and
Holy Spirit stopped working in people.
right.
Right. Right.
I think
According
I
to
think
the
a lot of what we're
cessationists,
seeing
anyway.
is, oh my gosh, that
Yeah,
people in culture are clinging to the vestiges of the Western culture, and they don't know they're grappling with what it means to be a Christian, and what it like they don't understand that Christian and suffering are hand in hand a lot of times. And so because they don't
that's the only
understand
thing
that,
Jesus guarantees is you will have tribulation. And the
Right.
American church,
Thank
absolutely,
that's
you.
not
Thank
really had that
you.
very much.
absolutely, that's why
But
I
at
don't
the end, we
actually
win.
that's actually why I don't believe that we're going to be taken out of the tribulation. Again, I don't think that we're going to suffer
The
like
word
the ones that are
tribulation
sealed.
is specific to people who have faith. Like that's what that word means, is to be
Yeah,
attacked for your faith.
right.
And if
Right.
Which
the
is why I'm
church is
saying
gone, there's no
I don't
tribulation saints that
correct.
Right.
I don't see how we can believe that and Shelley already knows. Like I can beat this horse until it's dead and then revive it and kill it again. That I don't know how we think that people in the very early church martyred, were beheaded, were sawed in half, and then we're like, oh, we're just gonna
We're
skip out
not
on that part.
destined for
No,
wrath.
no, that's
and
not.
not even the early church, most of the rest of the world, and that's our
Right.
Yeah,
brothers and sisters around the world.
date
So
to date,
we get to
right?
get out of it, but they get screwed. Why?
Right.
Because we live in
Because somehow
America.
I American am more holy than
Mhm.
Peter.
But there is neither Jew nor Greek nor American in Christ. Right? This is and that's why, like, I
Right.
hate it when churches do like patriotic stuff. Like I used to be like, oh, gung ho patriotism, all this kind of stuff. I've moved away from that stuff because it's an idol.
It
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 can
is
can
be,
be.
truly,
yeah.
It
truly an
It
can be.
idol.
definitely can
And you
be.
can
And
do it
I
your
anyway.
agree.
It's
salvation
okay
is
to
not in your political party.
right.
Right,
It's
right.
okay to be proud of your country and to enjoy living in it. But whenever you decide that for some reason you get to uh, get away from all of the problems that the rest of the world
Oh yeah.
has because you're
No,
in
no, no,
America.
no,
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 God
no,
bless
sir.
America. No, God is about to be done blessing America. So
Well,
all this
this is
stuff
it.
that's going,
This is
and that's when
blessed is the
that
nation
second
whose
solar
God is
eclipse.
the
I'm
Lord, but our
Yeah.
nation's God is not the Lord.
Yeah, well, and honestly, I'm not big into like the signs of the heavens kind of stuff, but this this solar eclipse that's formed an X over the United States has got me a bit nervous. The one that 7 years
We're
ago there
going to
was
that.
another one. I know,
Yeah,
and there's
we're going to that conference.
We're going to
yeah,
that. We're
yeah,
very
yeah.
excited.
See, honestly, that kind of freaks me out a little bit, and I don't know why, but it really kind of
I
because
didn't
it's
Well,
even realize that it was about that. I was
I
more
didn't
it's
excited
either.
about
it's
going to
Just the
one
listen
people that were
happens.
to.
talking. Yeah.
And then 7 years
Yeah.
later, another one happens and it forms a giant X. If you go to the middle of that X, there it goes to a
I
town
know.
called
I heard that.
Salem, which is Jerusalem. That's just freaking weird. Okay, I'm not. I don't put a bunch of stock in it. I'm not
Well,
gonna
we're
like
just
Signs of the
going to
heavens.
tell all
Dallas.
my old stuff.
Uh,
but I'll meet you guys there then, man, because I'm just
Yeah.
just south of Fort Worth, because that sounds
Well,
freaking awesome.
cool. We'll
Because
we'll
I
hang out.
wanna, because that it really it makes me think that something bad's gonna happen in the United States. It just really does. Because like the
Well,
sign of Jonah, that's what it was. It was a solar eclipse that happened to them. There was a solar eclipse that happened during World War One, I think it was. That they had a great solar eclipse at the beginning of it. That freaked everybody out.
Really?
Yeah, dude, look at all the
Ah,
weird stuff that solar eclipses happen
well,
around. Oh my goodness, dude.
man, I'm
but
just
don't you
And
like,
it
think?
doesn't mean that
eh.
this is going to happen immediately. I mean, Jesus, the solar eclipse that lasted for hours, right?
Right.
So, uh, I mean, it's. I
Well,
mean, God literally said that He put these lights in the sky
yeah,
for
man.
time for appointed times is what the
Yep.
actual
Yeah.
the actual
Yep.
Hebrew means. And so, I mean,
Yep. Yep.
could nothing happen? Sure, I wasn't into all the blood moon stuff and all. I wasn't into, but this one's kind of like that's a little weird. I mean, that's a big X just like over the U.S. It makes me think that, and right in the middle of one of the most contentious elections that's ever happened or ever
Right.
will happen,
Right.
and no matter who wins, the country's going to destroy itself.
Yeah. There's somebody was saying something about a
I expect
prophecy that when the
something
Chiefs
big to happen
win,
this year. Yeah,
so
yeah.
I guess we'll
I
see something
expect
about
some
45 and 47.
Yeah, I expect some shenanigans to happen because this is an election year.
Oh,
Some
you
big
should definitely
shenanigans. Yeah,
Oh,
I mean,
well, yeah.
I mean, it's almost like in the last election there were some shenanigans going on with the Wu flu and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
We'll
Uh,
see. We'll see what
yeah,
fun little dogs and ponies they trot out for us
yeah,
next.
yeah. With the actual dementia patient that they've now admitted is an actual dementia patient from the freaking special
We're
counsel.
not we're not going to prosecute him because
We're not a
people
serious
will
country.
feel
Like that's
bad
it.
about
We're not.
him.
We're not a serious country anymore.
No, we're not.
And God sends terrible leaders to punish a nation. So
Certainly.
Yes, yes, he
that's
does.
what He's done.
But he also, I think too, last point, going back to eschatology, but um, people are going to be very excited for the Antichrist because all these
Because things are going to be
buffoons
bad.
who are ruling us are so bad
Yeah.
that you're like,
Yeah.
please give us somebody who's
I mean,
got a
they're all
geriatric
like 900
nitwit,
years old and literally stop in the middle of their sentences because their brain stops working in the middle of
or they're
it.
so corrupt, and or they're so corrupt that you're just like, how
Yeah.
can you be that
Because they
corrupt
sold
and
their
think I
souls because
can't
they were all on the
tell?
Epstein Island and all that kind of stuff. So real
No, they
quick, we're gonna
were.
end real quick. I just want to ask you about eschatology. Just take a couple seconds. How far away do you think actual uh, serious biblical eschatology stuff is going to happen? How far away do you think we are?
When you say serious, what do you mean?
I mean, the Book of Revelation actually starting to come true.
I think we are in the
Yeah,
prelude.
I think we're
Yeah.
already. I mean, I
How
think we're
long do
dead.
you think that lasts? Though? I mean, like, when would you? I'm not
I
asking you to
I
set a date. But
I
I
do you
think
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 like
like
it,
5
really
years or
seriously
30 years or
in the next definitely in the next 50 years, but probably sooner than
oh
that.
yeah,
see
probably
I'm thinking probably
the
next 20
writer on
years, 30 years.
the rider on the
2040 I
white
think is going to be
horse
interesting. Yeah.
could be, well, and you know what? And I know there's contention in this, but when Jesus said, "I will not always contend with man; his days shall be 120 years," I know
Yeah.
that it was a not yet and also done.
Yeah.
Um, but 120 years from the time that Israel became a nation again was, well, it became a nation in 1948, so that'd be 2068.
2060. Yeah. See, I heard uh this one guy, and it was actually kind of compelling because he said that he thought that Adam and Eve were on the earth or were in Eden and all of that before the fall. It was about 33 years. And the reason I said that is because we're almost at like 6,000 years. We're over 6,000 years from the creation by like It's like 6,008 or 6,010, something like
Mhm.
that, from the traditional time creation. And the reason that it's not stopping at 6,000 is because of those 33 years uh, was when Jesus was on the earth. And Jesus was on the earth for 33 years because Adam and Eve were in the garden for the 33 years.
Hmm.
And so that,
Mm.
and I think that's interesting. I'm not going to put any stock
It
in it.
is
I think that's pretty
interesting.
interesting, which
That's
means that I would
pretty
be sometime
fascinating.
around 2040, but that also coincides with when Elon Musk says they will be capable of doing the actual Neuralink downloading of the consciousness. That's when he
Well,
plans to be done with that. To be able to
I
do
think
that
it'll
is
happen sooner.
2040.
I think
I
it'll
think
happen
I think
sooner.
they'll I think but I think for mass production it will probably
Maybe
be
so. Maybe
yeah
so.
around that time. The rich and the famous people will have it first, obviously, and they will get it. Uh,
You go and you
right.
guys go ahead and hive mind all you want. I'm good, thanks.
Yeah,
Well,
that's super
get
creepy stuff. And with
somebody
these new
somebody
Apple
send
Vision
along.
things that they got, we are. I mean, I tell my kids, I was like, look, you like the movie Ready Player One? We will live that. Like
Yeah.
that is the next step. Is
You know what?
you will live in the pod and you
God
will eat
used
the
the
bugs
hornets
and live in the
before he could do it
metaverse.
again. He
Yep.
used the hornets to destroy the
Yeah.
hive mind. He can do it again.
Yeah.
But honestly, here are a couple of the things. There will be the temple has to be rebuilt. Now,
Yeah.
can it be tabernacled? Absolutely. Can they
Hmm.
tabernacle in half a year? Most definitely.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be
But the
a
anti
Solomon's Temple Part Two.
nope, it doesn't. But there has to be something the mount on Mount Zion,
Yeah, some sort of
um,
an agreement going on there. Yeah.
and the temple worship reinstituted. Did you
We've
hear that?
also got the red
That
heifers here in Texas.
did you
I heard
hear
that
that
some.
Hamana did October 7th because of the heifers in Jerusalem?
No. See,
Yeah,
I don't. I try not to. See, I already listen to enough conspiracy theory stuff that it drives. It makes. I have to take
I
a
ha-
break. So,
I
like,
have
I don't know if
been
you ever listen
into
to Alex Jones.
eschatology since I
I
was a
used to listen
child.
to Alex
Alex
Jones all
Jones,
the
I
time.
love him.
I love Alex Jones. You know, he went kind of crazy. He went kind of crazy, and because
He's
he
kind of
does
come
I
that
back
met
for
from the
4 hours
edge.
a
a
day.
chick
He
at
does
my
that for
previous job.
4 hours a day.
Yeah.
That's
I met with a
ridiculous.
I met a chick in my previous job that she was doing one of the we did like they were basically like photo sessions, but they were for
Yeah.
AI capture for all sorts of weird reasons. And so we had to take really specific types of photos and everything. But she had like super weird hair, and I live in Austin, dude. So I was like, oh,
Yeah.
she's probably some crazy liberal chick. No, she was like part of Infowars, and
Yeah.
she like knows Alex Jones personally, and she was
Yeah.
like going
Uh,
on and on at length about it, and I was like, well, this is fascinating. I don't even know if I still have her information, but she's really really cool, and she kept
I had to
saying things.
stop
She's like,
listening to him so much
she kept
because
saying,
it was driving me like where I was just like, dude, this is
sure,
yeah. I
depressed
sure,
think
all
all
the
things
time
in
because
moderation, though.
he's
Yeah, yeah.
freaking right about so much. Like
yeah,
the gay frog stuff. I used to work with the product that he's talking about at my
oh
last
wow,
job. It's called atrazine, and we had to wear like all kinds of special equipment to use it because it is so toxic and it actually turns boy frogs into frogs and like
anyway,
that's
the only thing that she was saying that
That's
made me think of it
crazy.
was that she was always saying, "Oh, he's a national treasure," and that just cracked me up.
he just I mean he
He
seems like
kind
a
of is though.
genuine sweetheart and he just kind of lost it with the Sandy Hook stuff, which I
Yeah.
mean the dude
Well,
went crazy. He went crazy
I
with
don't,
all of this. I
maybe.
yeah, I know.
listened I listened to him during that time. I really did. I listened to him every day during that time. He maybe talked about that a handful of times and he honestly wasn't even like
Totally
espousing
sold
any
on it.
full beliefs about it.
Yeah.
I still
No,
got
they
some strange stuff
crucified
going
him
on about all
so
kinds of stuff
hard for
because
that.
Yeah.
It
just because he
it
helped get
seemed
Trump
like
elected.
it's or he was shining some light in places
On
that
Hillary
powerful
Clinton
people
or
didn't
he
want.
talked about I knew about Epstein like 10 years ago because he
Right,
talked
right,
about it and Bill
right,
Clinton going to
Yeah.
the
right.
island and he was
Yep,
talking about it for
yep,
forever. Yeah.
yep. He's
Yeah.
real interesting. I wouldn't want to walk in his shoes, but I
Yeah.
respect him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's been his character has been just assassinated, but that's all right.
Yep.
All right, well, I got to get to bed because I got to wake up and go work
You and me
tomorrow.
both. Hey, you want to give your plugins real quick, dude?
Yeah, so Metal Bible Podcast. You can find me on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, on all podcasting platforms. Just type in Metal Bible Podcast. I'm the only one. You'll see a cartoon with my bearded face on it and some cherubim seraphim on there. Uh, so yeah, just go ahead and check it out. Again, thank you guys so much. This has been awesome. How am I going to be able to download this afterwards?
I think you just got to click on the same link and you can go in and.
Oh, is there like a link that will show up?
Yeah,
Afterwards?
if you try and you can't for some reason, just let me know and I'll
Okay.
make sure you get it.
I mean, if you want, you can just email it to me because I'm about to just go straight to freaking bed.
Oh no, you're good, man. You can crash.
Yeah.
You can crash.
Yeah,
Oh,
just send me the in Messenger and then I'll
here. Let me,
download it.
guys. We're gonna sign
Let's
off. God bless.
do the
We're gonna
blessing.
we'll go offline here in a second. We'll
Yep.
just chat real quick. God bless, guys.
All
Shalom, shalom. The Lord bless you and keep you. Make His face shine upon you. Be gracious to you, and give you
Lord
peace.
turn his
right.
countenance
Thank you,
towards
guys.
you
Upon you.
and give you peace.
Thank you.
Shalom, shalom.
God bless,
Maranatha,
guys.
everyone.
Maranatha, guys.